beneath the abusive workplace, the rejection of labor rights, the creepy obsession with being loved.
The creepy obsession with being loved. Wow, is that a self-report? This is evidence of exactly how fucking bereft of any real integration in society these leftists are. They have absolutely no fucking idea why somebody would seek out love. Can you imagine how fucking alien you are to a normal person as you point at Jimmy Fallon and say, he's creepy because he wishes to be loved? Do you understand how fucked up that is? Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone. This is 15 years old. I'm dyeing my hair, and I'm also like somebody. This was 2010. I was a vaguely well-known person at this point, and I was doing the exact same thing I'm doing now. I was live broadcasting. This has a terrible intro to it. Like, it's ridiculous. Here, look. I'm 23 or 24 years old here. I am dyeing my hair because my hair began turning gray at the age of 16. I immediately started dyeing it because I was like, wow, that's not going to be good for me as a high schooler. Wow, do I look like a douche? How was I somebody? Look at that. How did people like that? Look at how much better I look now. Like, in all seriousness. So anyway, as you can tell by the title, it says Jimmy Fallon interview. I'm not going to listen to the whole thing because I don't know if I can tolerate the cringe levels of it. But I wanted to show everybody this so that I can disclose that I very much don't hate Jimmy Fallon. Sometimes he's quite middling. I think he's very much a people pleaser, and I hope that he's okay a lot of the time. Alcoholism. I actually thought, as much as people shit on Jimmy Fallon for laughing during stuff, that's kind of exactly the personality you need for a talk show. If you're not going for like some form of absurdism like Conan is, or was rather, the jovial kind of people-pleasery personality of Jimmy Fallon actually, I think, fits.
Like
and here,
the audience is got to be like a hot dog vendor.
Uh-huh.
He's vending Ayn Rand novels. So he's gonna be.
See, that's pretty funny. I don't remember this at all. I do not remember even a word of this. But this is Jimmy Fallon telling me that on the show tonight, there was going to be a hot dog vendor in the audience who was actually vending Ayn Rand novels. That's actually a good bit. Like, he should bring that bit back. Bring back the hot dog vendor that's vending Ayn Rand novels. So I think that's enough disclosures. You understand, I have some history with one Jimmy Fallon and am slightly biased towards him. I'm not going to tell everybody that Jimmy Fallon is the best comedian of all time. Comedy is a very subjective thing. You're welcome to like or dislike Jimmy Fallon for any reason. I'm not going to tell you what to think. I'm not going to tell you how to act. I'm not going to tell you any of that. I am not an authority figure in your life. With that, I am going to get us in to what we're talking about today. It's a video by the Serfs, who is just one of the worst content creators that has ever lived. Massive hack, total liar, establishment shill, one of the worst, terrible. In the chat, I would like you all to quickly describe Lance. Because I would like people's opinion on Lance before I begin to get into Lance's horseshit. Fell says, wiener of the highest degree. Agree very much. Ben W says some kind of turbo lib bread tuber. Yep. Johnny Velocity says, he's a dweeb. Mm-hmm. Dissident says, unearned smugness. Yes. Just leftists suck. They tend to just be awful. They make terrible content. And here we have an example of that specifically. So I'm going to start it up, and here we go.
On November 22nd, 2024, DJ Khaled appeared on The Tonight Show to sit down with Jimmy Fallon.
God damn, I hate Lance's voice. I just have to start off. His voice is so bad. On November 24th, DJ Khaled.
For a special pre-birthday appearance. They shared
for a special pre-birthday appearance. He's got that whiny little, like, weasel voice. I hate it.
the usual useless drivel that typically serves as a commercial for whatever project most celebrities come to plug before the actual commercial break. But right before the good cut to ads, something unexpected happened.
Reset. That's exactly it. He does sound like he is describing a murder. He sounds like he is setting this up as true crime, which I would say is a bit. It's also how you set up a YouTube video now. You set up the mystery, which, by the way, I fucking hate. Oh my God, I hate how YouTube videos are all like, at first I thought this thing was just a thing, and then I unraveled a secret network of unbelievable scams that you will. It's just awful. Every YouTube video is this kind of shit now. And this is him talking about not liking Jimmy Fallon, and that's how he's setting it up. Also, I want to note this. Like, listen to this.
Cut to ads. Something unexpected happened.
Something unexpected happened. Understand, he says, something unexpected happened, as if something evil is about to transpire, because he's doing this kind of voiceover.
Also, I want to say happy early birthday to you, because it almost is your birthday.
DJ Khaled was in the middle of explaining some of his birthday plans with his family, and Jimmy, on cue with the setup, brought up his favorite dish. Khaled would explain that his favorite food is an Arabic cuisine called maklube. Much to his surprise and completely at random, Jimmy happened to have a plate of maklube already there as a gift, and in a touching moment of TV dry-jacking, they would light a candle and share some of the delicious dish together.
Yeah, there you go.
Classic, wholesome TV goodness. Then, of course, the mandatory plug for what is not a commercial break because it happened before the commercials, and everyone goes happy, well-fed, and filled with joy.
So this is the unexpected thing that happened. That voiceover set up something sinister to happen, and nothing. Like they ate food. They ate the food that DJ Khaled likes, which is, by the way, also not that unexpected. Like if like somebody's like, "Well, what's your favorite food?" and the guy's like, a well-documented public personality, he goes, "Well, my favorite food is this thing that I've probably said in an interview 40 times," and then. Oh, surprise, surprise. The host has the food there. It's not unexpected, but second off, he sets it up like something sinister is about to happen. And the video is called Jimmy Fallon, Evil Incarnate.
And everyone goes happy, well-fed, and filled with joy. And what if I told you this was one of the most haunting moments ever performed on live television?
What in the fuck? It is not one of the most haunting moments that has ever been performed on live television. It's two guys eating some food that the other guy probably said 100 times in public he thinks is good. This is awful. I watched 4 minutes of this, and then I was like, I have to stream about this. And I was like, well, first off, I'm not going to watch this whole thing myself. I'm not going to do that. But I watched this intro, and I linked it in the Discord. Which is, you can join at petercoffin.com/discord. I linked it and I was like, what in the fuck is going on? This is terrible. Anyway.
So, on paper, I should really like Jimmy Fallon. He joined the cast of SNL at the end of what is considered to be the second golden era of the show, and I was a teenager just at the right time at the right place. While the OG cast is considered the greatest of all time, and for good reason, a few decades would pass until the stars aligned to feature some of the funniest comedians in history bumping jokes and cowbells off each other. Will Ferrell, Mike Myers, Chris Farley, Phil Hartman, Adam Sandler, Molly Shannon, Daryl Hammond, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Tracy Morgan. These are all household names now.
He named almost everybody in that photo except for Tim Robbins, Sherry O'Terry, and Chris Kattan. Like, let me verify that. No, I guess he didn't name Jim Brewer. Jim Brewer's there as well. But he named everybody. He named Daryl Hammond, Tracy Morgan. Almost thought he wasn't going to name Tracy Morgan for a second there. Did he not name Norm Macdonald? Holy shit.
Will Ferrell, Mike Myers, Chris Farley, Phil Hartman, Adam Sandler, Molly Shannon, Daryl Hammond, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Tracy Morgan.
Holy shit. How do you not name Norm Macdonald is literally the GOAT. He is the legend. Like, as far as I'm concerned, my God. Are you fucking kidding? I'm sorry. He's just signaled to because Norm Macdonald, if you're a leftist, Norm Macdonald is right-wing coded. If you're not a leftist, Norm Macdonald is not coded in any way. But if you're a leftist, Norm Macdonald is right-wing coded. So that's probably why he didn't name him, and also Jim Brewer. I don't know. Norm Macdonald, how do you not name Norm? You have a photo of the SNL cast of the time with Norm Macdonald in it, and you strategically leave out a tiny amount of the people in the photo. And Norm is one. Now, I guess I have to, hold on. I have to disclose something about Norm as well. I actually have experience with Norm Macdonald as well. So I have to disclose this too. Norm, when I was at the height of my controversy, Norm followed me on Twitter, and he's one of the kindest people I think I've ever had the pleasure of interacting with. I was able to interact with him for a couple years before he died. It was kind of on and off. It was kind of if I said something that he thought was interesting, he'd what do you mean by this? Because he is, I think he's skeptical of anybody who's particularly political. But also, I told him I really liked his recent comedy special when he actually followed me and messaged me. And I said, well, thank you. And I told him that. I really wish he wasn't dead because, I would have had probably a chance to meet him at some point. But, I did at least get the pleasure of speaking with him through Twitter DMs for a while. I will say, some of these people, I have had some limited interactions with, and me defending them. If I don't say something about it and somebody knows about it, it looks like I'm being kind of a shithead. But, yeah. I mean, that's my SNL orbit that I can verify for you. I don't think there are any others. Oh, I was also an extra in a Will Ferrell movie, Stranger Than Fiction. So my disclosures, I think, end there. I'm not defending these people because I have some interactions with. It's because Lance is a stupid poopy head.
Is now well established in the annals of laugh history. The 90s saw not one but two of the greatest collections of cast members in not only the show's history, but human history. And right at the tail end of the Matt Foley living by a van down by the river and Adam Sandler singing about lunch meat entered Jimmy Fallon, who oversaw the transition from the Will Ferrell era into the Tina Fey one. Standing there awkwardly in the background with very few lines as new cast members often have, there wasn't much to think about Jimmy. In a few seconds, Will Ferrell would perform one of the most iconic comedy routines of all time, and Fallon's contribution to the entire moment is nearly ruining it by breaking. Who was this?
Okay, fuck right off. So, as much as Jimmy Fallon, I think, overdid it a little bit, people breaking on SNL is legitimately the thing that makes SNL worth watching. SNL sucks ass pretty much 90% of the time. It is a terrible show. It has always been a terrible show. Part of the reason it's interesting is because it's live. That is, I think, if Saturday Night Live was not live, if it was just Saturday night comedy or something, there would be no reason to watch it. It is not good. It's a show that they make over the course of a week. It is not well-honed writing most of the time. It is, if you've ever watched documentaries about how the show comes together, it's very clear why it is not the best comedy show of all time. It is a live thing. It's a weird thing. It's an interesting thing. I mean, that is why you watch SNL. It's not because it's funny, because it's almost never funny. When it's funny, I mean, you got to give it props, but it's usually terrible. Like, the norm of SNL is a bunch of shit, and the stuff that survives that's good, that's the diamonds in the rough that you basically had to wade through all of the nonsense that is SNL to get to.
Feckless. But see, on paper, it would make sense for me to love him. He was, as I mentioned, a part of the iconic era of SNL. He picked one of my favorite musical groups to be his in-house band. Much of the sketches he does with celebrities involve nostalgic activities that are sure to stimulate whatever section of the brain makes you stop having
So this is just cynical right here. He's talking about why he should like Jimmy Fallon. Like, listen to the reasoning here.
He was, as I mentioned, a part of the iconic era of SNL.
Who gives a shit? Who gives a flying fuck if a cast member was part of an iconic era of SNL? I would also disagree. I would say that the era directly after Will Ferrell leaving was one of the worst eras of SNL, and until Will Forte came around, barely had anything funny on it. And that's not Jimmy Fallon's fault at all, but I'm saying, like, what? This is not a real reason you should like Jimmy Fallon. This is the same thing as cancel culture doing guilt by association. It's fondness by association. And I disagree with that just as much as I disagree with guilt by association.
He picked one of my favorite musical groups to be his in-house band. Much of the sketch...
Again, he's supposed to like the talk show because of the band. You don't watch a late night talk show because the band is good. These are not like real reasons to like Jimmy Fallon.
No, he picked one of my favorite musical groups to be his in-house band. Much of the sketches he does with celebrities involve nostalgic activities that are sure to stimulate whatever section of the brain makes you stop having existential dread about climate change.
I have no existential dread about climate change. I don't think about it at all. So there, bitch. I drive an electric car. I drive a Tesla. Oh, there's a conflict right there. Consumption. Yeah, that's everything. Like these types all care what you do. I drive an electric car. I drive a Tesla. Don't know what to say about that, do we? If consumption matters, then driving the electric car matters. But also, Elon Musk is a shithead. I hate this shit. I hate this shit. Bringing up climate change because there's nostalgia in Jimmy Fallon's bits. What the fuck is that? What is that? That does not make any sense.
Simpler time where 4 controllers and a few good friends would see if they could go the entire night throwing bananas and red shells at each other, even without the use of cocaine.
What? What does that have to do with Jimmy Fallon?
But there was something about Jimmy that always rubbed me the wrong way. Something profoundly evil about.
Like you said, okay, so the good things about Jimmy Fallon was that he was around at a good time. He liked the right music, I guess. And the third thing that he's good for was that he like played GoldenEye with Pierce Brosnan and did stuff like that. Okay, fine. Like that's at least something commenting on things that Jimmy Fallon actually does as content. But that's not what he detailed about that thing. Instead, he brought up climate change and talked about how you used to be able to play video games and not do cocaine. Like, what is the... I understand, like, he might be trying to be funny or be trying to add texture, but, like, this is fluff. This has nothing to do with Jimmy Fallon. He's setting up a straw man of Jimmy Fallon, in fact. He's setting up a version of Jimmy Fallon that is easy to take down.
But there was something about Jimmy that always rubbed me the wrong way. Something profoundly evil about him.
Why did I give him that whip for his birthday?
Always treat the customers with...
Who needs to laugh that much? And at what?
You know, so I'm not going to tell you that Jimmy Fallon needs to laugh absolutely every single time Jimmy Fallon laughs. I do think that is excessive and it can be annoying. But if the criticism you're opening to justify the idea that he is profoundly evil is why would anybody need to laugh that much? It just shows exactly how like little fun leftists can have. They just can't enjoy things. They can't do it. And when I say this as somebody who advocates for proletariat ownership of the means of production. I say this as somebody who would be in the mainstream associated with the left due to what I'm saying. Leftists cannot have fun. And like, is there anything that in any way could make that more evident than the first thing that he justifies calling Jimmy Fallon profoundly evil for is that Jimmy Fallon laughs too easy. What in the hell is that?
Is he hiding behind his dead, soulless eyes and goofy?
Does Jimmy Fallon have dead, soulless eyes? Like, I'm autistic, okay? I'm not the best person to answer that question. I don't think that he has dead, soulless eyes.
Face. One of those nice guys who gives nice guys a bad name.
Oh, come on. Am I going to be able to get through this video is the question that I am now beginning to ask. Because what? So, okay, yes, he's using a piece of footage here where he now does, I will say, that does give me the vibe of soulless dead eyes. That's also part of the bit that they're doing. I don't know if you've ever seen this Christmas song that they do. It is a terrible, like an intentionally terrible Christmas song, and they all look like dorks. I remember these. These are actually funny, I might add. Why are we doing a true crime video about Jimmy Fallon laughing at stuff and having like a look on his face?
The ones who tell your sister to avoid dating because behind the veil of giggles, he seems like someone who wears his own mother's skin as a cape and...
What? I'm sorry. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? I legit... What? How did this go from he laughs too much to being a fake nice guy to he's somebody who fucking wears his mother's skin? What? Can we get a hard drive check on the Serfs? So there's this concept. I can't remember whether it's Freud or if it's Jung. It's one or both of these two men. It's called projection. It's where you see something in other people that you actually either hate or love about yourself, and you treat them as though they are that. And I think that we might be walking into a 58-minute instance of that, because what in the fuck?
Sleeps in a jar of his own urine. And this was a lifelong thing for me. I always hated him. Certified lifelong hater.
Why? Why did you hate? You hated him because he laughed too much? Like, we've escalated literally from he laughs too much to I always hated him, and that's why. He's a psychopath who kills people and wears their skin because he laughs too much. What in the fuck is happening?
I had friends who would look at me like I'm insane. As if, how could anyone hate someone so wholesome? That would be like hating Mr. Rogers or LeVar Burton.
I'm a huge fan of bread. Are you kidding me? Before a meal?
I know, all those carbs, it's the best, so bready.
So bready.
But I never thought of LeVar Burton or Mr. Rogers as the kind of people who could wear a mother cape.
Okay, we're on the title screen, okay? We're on the title screen. And our man is essentially saying that Jimmy Fallon, because he laughs too much, is like Charles Manson. Like, we've got 4 minutes that total in Jimmy Fallon laughs too much, and therefore he's Charles Manson. That seems to be what these 4 minutes and 14 seconds have totaled in. Wow. Content warning for alcoholism, racism, workplace abuse, suicidal ideation, non-graphic war. You need a content warning for non-graphic war footage? Shut the fuck up. Use of blackface, which I just don't care. It's misguided, sure. But most of the time when people do blackface now, it's literally to say that blackface is bad. See Always Sunny. I don't think that that's the case with Jimmy Fallon's blackface, but I think it's just misguided and stupid.
I don't come to where you work and knock the corn dog out of your hand.
Jimmy Fallon doesn't seem on the surface like a bad guy. He's a nice guy. A man who is considered too wholesome for late-night television. Even though he's now become a fixture of the Big Four, most people associate him with a goofy smile and a good heart. Not quite as nerdy as Seth Meyers, not as crude as Jimmy Kimmel, not as classic as Stephen Colbert, but...
Ah, yes. Classic comedian Stephen Colbert, who... What? I'm sorry, what? Stephen Colbert is easily the worst of the current late night hosts. He is so bad. So goddamn bad. Whatever.
Just right. A veritable porridge of childhood nostalgia. Inexplicably more talented.
What in the fuck is... Why...
co-hosts and awkward moments with celebrities. For a man who has everything, it's impossible to escape the feeling that he's earned nothing, which isn't fair because, unlike a lot of people in entertainment, he's not a nepo baby. He didn't come from extreme wealth, and his parents never provided any notable advantages to him. He is a classical comedian tale of hard...
I'm sorry, no, you're wrong, Lance. Jimmy is white and a male. I'm just saying, while we're building a straw man, apparently identity politics doesn't matter. That's what I want to note here real quick. If we're building our straw man, our thing to knock down, it's fine to ignore id poll and say that white males have no advantages. Just saying. I actually genuinely consider this real. He didn't have advantages. He's just a normal dude who actually did work like crazy. But let's see where we're... I know, it feels fake. This feels like... And if he ends up revealing that this is like a fake thing at some point, I'm not going to be shocked. But like if he doesn't, something is seriously wrong.
Work and climbing the stand-up ladder until you become the rare star that shines bright enough to become a diamond. He moved to LA in the mid-1990s to pursue a career in comedy and spent years grinding at famous comedy clubs like the Improv and the Laugh Factory.
Trying to hook me up, man. We're going bar hopping, you know? Trying to pick up some girls. And some of my friends are under 21 years old, so you have to use like a fake ID. You know, like a fake, even if it doesn't look anything like you know, like, yeah, this looks just like you, Fred. Yeah, just trust me. Wear the turban. Yeah, let's give it a shot.
He had spent countless hours as a child watching hours and hours of Saturday Night Live and listening to Adam Sandler doing endless mimicking and sketches of his cadence.
Do Adam Sandler.
Through this, he became notable for his impression skills on the stand-up stage.
This is actually one of the reasons I like Jimmy Fallon. He's actually a pretty good impressionist. As some people may know, I like to do impressions.
I don't know. I think it's a lot of fun to do impressions.
I pretty much only do Trump now. But like, and it's just like anytime I think, oh, it'd be funny to say something slightly different, I just start talking like Trump. But yeah, I like doing impressions. And like, I used to use that. I used to be a comedian at one point, as noted in the beginning of this stream.
Okay, people, okay. I mean, we look at these things. I mean, why don't the arms and legs move?
I agree, Matt. Matt in the chat says, this reminds me a lot of the Wendigoon thing. Also, I felt the whole time it had to be a bit. It does have that feel to it, doesn't it?
Legends he worshipped before him had stood the big break, as they say, the Saturday Night Live audition, which he totally and completely bombed. While there's no recording of it that exists today, it was remarkable for being unremarkable. Simply not funny enough for what the team was looking for at the time, and his dreams were crushed as quickly as they were staring him through his soulless eyes. This, unfortunately, wasn't the last we'd see of him, however, and he even strangely enough landed a second audition that apparently he absolutely crushed through the use of blackface.
Why can't a black man walk around, try to do a walkathon? Man, I get scared, try to walk on the crack, step on the crack, break your mama's back.
Okay, that's not entirely fair.
That's a good impression of Chris Rock. I'm sorry. Immediate. It's good. That is a good Chris Rock impression.
He didn't actually wear any makeup, but he did debut his impression of Chris Rock, and his routine even made Lorne Michaels laugh, something that's extremely rare in SNL auditions.
Doing an impression of a black person, I think it sucks that became racist. People have accents. Like, is it racist to start talking like I'm from Glasgow? Is it racist? Is it racist if I start talking like this? Is this racist? Am I shitting on the people of Glasgow for talking like this? It's not. Like, I don't know how that is inherently shitting on anybody. And yes, it sometimes is funny. An accent can sometimes be funny, but I don't understand how it's a problem to impersonate that. Like, not automatically. And there is a way to do an impression of a black person that is certainly bad. Yeah, but like, no criticism for doing Adam Sandler, who is a Jewish man and has a very specific voice. No criticism for that. Criticism just for doing an accurate, good impression of Chris Rock. Maybe not the absolute best one that's possible, but yeah.
Instead inspired him, meeting virtually every single comedian he ever considered a hero, and in many ways accomplishing something that few people have done. How many folk actually get to live their exact dream they've wanted to their entire lives through hard work and perseverance, and then make it a reality?
So, cards on the table, you know how some people tell you that you look just like a celebrity? You really remind me of so-and-so, such and such. And for me...
Oh, no. First off, no, Lance, you do not look like Jimmy Fallon. Second off, wow.
Me, 95% of the time, it's usually Brendan Fraser, which I've totally made peace with. I'm totally fine with now at this point.
From going from making some of the biggest trash in cinema to reinventing himself as an Academy Award-winning artist, he's a survivor, an outspoken advocate against abuse. So no, I don't take it the wrong way.
5% of the time, Someone says Jimmy Fallon.
Some people say that you look like Jimmy Fallon sometimes, and wow, what an affront.
This goes blank. Not out of me manipulating it to look like that, but because maybe on some spiritual level, a small part of my soul is leaving my body. I never used to be able to properly articulate why, but stick with me on this journey because I think we'll get there together.
So this is not a joke video. He is not going to pull the mask back and tell us that he's joking and that this is a parody of true crime. No, it's not that. It's not that. This man does not look like, Lance does not look like the man that is on this screen. Come on. First off, you don't look like Brendan Fraser at all. Second off, you do not look like Jimmy Fallon. Third off, know what I mean, Vern? Ernest. You look like Ernest. Next week we get a video. Ernest is evil incarnate.
Someone says Jimmy Fallon.
And then my face goes blank. Not out of me manipulating it to look like that, but because maybe on some spiritual level, a small part of my soul is leaving my body. I never used to be able to properly articulate
You end up, like, when you say like maybe on a spiritual level, you usually go, I acknowledge some aspect of the truth here. But no, it's like, it's just that I hate it so much. Maybe on a spiritual level, I just hate it so much.
why, but stick with me on this journey because I think we'll get there together. Where were we? SNL. SNL. The holy grail of comedy. The intersection of music, art, sketches, and politics. Fusing together like a Doctor Who reference I can't make since I don't watch the show. If Monty Python is the Beatles and...
What the fuck? Why bring it up then? Who cares? Okay.
Saturday Night Live is the Rolling Stones of the comedy world. A formidable giggle powerhouse, churning out the biggest stars who get their break in the fast-paced world of weekly writing and performing, solidifying them as legends who paid their dues and went on to be the few A-list celebrities known more for laughter than for tears. And right in the middle of it all was Jimmy Fallon trying to tear it all down.
I bought it here before.
Jimmy Fallon was trying to tear SNL all down. So, like, because he laughs in skits, this man was trying to destroy SNL. That's what's being implied here. I hope it's not the point that's being made, but, like...
Yeah, I got a guy who's been bitten by a big rattlesnake at the Leatherman shop. The group gets separated. Where's the rendezvous point?
By his love for sweet wine and doggery.
I've got my Jack Speed bag packed already.
This is literally what YouTube is now. This is all that you... And I'm sorry, it's something that I don't mind about how YouTube is now. Like, people leaving in the breaks. Because the seriousness of doing the dialogue accurately is not necessarily where the humor comes from. The artifice of a sketch is often not the thing that's funny about it, but the acknowledgement that the sketch is dumb or a silly thing or what have you. And granted, it's possible to do that without laughing, but there's a reason why people think that's funny. There's a reason why every YouTube video, when the person is reading a skit or a script off of a teleprompter and they break because something's dumb or they're like, why did I write that? They leave that shit in. Do you know why? Because it actually humanizes what's going on. It acknowledges that to some extent, the artifice of the thing that is happening is fake. It's not real. It's inauthentic. And most comedy is that way. Like, comedy is not something that is made to be taken completely seriously. People say, well, what's the truth at the center of the comedy? And I think that those people are people who, and Lance is definitely one of those people. He's like, unless there's a truth at the center of it, it's not actually funny. I guarantee you that's something that he thinks. But, like, comedy doesn't have to have a truth at the center of it. Like, it's funny when things are explicitly the opposite of true sometimes. Now, granted, that is an acknowledgement of a truth in a way, but it's not what comedy is. Comedy is a conversation. Like, you see somebody up on a stand-up stage talking. People are not just there for what that person is saying. The audience is as much a part of a comedian. I know that laugh tracks get a really bad a bad rap because they can sound extremely stupid. Like if you overuse a laugh track or you use it to try to make something seem funny, a laugh track is trash. But the fact is, the laughter there is part of why the thing is funny. It's not just that the words are great and the execution is great, because the words and the execution are only one side of the conversation. The audience is the other side of the conversation. And this is true of all art. All art is a conversation in some way. But comedy is a type of conversation in which the absurdity of things should be highlighted. And the laughter breaking in, like when you're in a hot tub having Drew Barrymore next to you saying, the hibiscus petals. It's funny. It's absurd to be acting like this is somehow like a sacred thing that must be performed correctly. It's wrong. It's a literal misinterpretation of what comedy is. So let it be known, this is what's bothering me. Partly, it's not necessarily entirely what's bothering me is that because Jimmy Fallon laughs during skits, he's apparently a serial killer who wears people's skin. That's completely insane. But I think the underlying philosophy that has led him to that is what I'm talking about right here. I have to imagine.
Back up a bit. There's a thing in SNL, an all-live television called breaking, short for breaking character. If it occurs on stage in a play, either by laughing or forgetting a line, often a person off stage can yell out.
So is he going to present an argument against everything I just said? Because if that's what happens, I'm just going to say, wow.
At the actor, allowing them to try and reset and prevent the audience from having too much of the illusion shattered before their very eyes. In TV, it can be especially awkward, as it's also being recorded live and while people are laughing at home. And SNL is considered some of the most golden moments of the show. The GOATs, all taken too early from this world, like Jim Belushi, Chris Farley, or Phil Hartman, were renowned for their...
We can't say Norm Macdonald. Even though we have Norm Macdonald on the screen, we can't acknowledge that Norm was taken from us too soon. We can't say Norm's name because he's right-wing coded. Wow. Holy shit.
Ability to make other cast members break.
What I've heard, you're using your paper not for writing, but for rolling doobies.
They perform comedy on such a high level that they rose beyond the skills of their other cast members and became too funny for even those around them to maintain composure. The art of comedy, as explained by contemporaries who had witnessed this feat, is often one of reverence. The brilliance of a jester so skilled that even fellow comedians, who were often highly competitive and petty of each other's talent, would be powerless to resist. The phenomenon is so treasured that it was even immortalized in a later cast member's Lonely Island song, And That's When You Break.
Back to the brace! Here's what Pharaoh and Dredge.
That's not Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy didn't elevate the material to such a level that his co-stars couldn't contain themselves.
Okay, so like, it's when any other comedian does this, when any other comedian on SNL breaks, it's okay that everybody actually likes it. But when Jimmy Fallon does it, he's trying to ruin the show. Also, he killed his mother and wore her skin because he does it. For some, what?
Jimmy just laughed at his own performance.
By the way, we're talking about how comedians are petty and competitive. And like, this is a video essay about how Jimmy Fallon is literally evil because he laughed at skits 20 years ago.
Performance or lines. Jimmy broke.
Evil. I want to explicitly say evil. This video is called Jimmy Fallon Evil Incarnate. And it is at 11 minutes and 15 seconds in. Seemingly not a joke.
And other people's talent constantly, which would derail scenes. Jimmy broke at his own fuck-ups. Jimmy broke and broke and broke and really became more memorable for coming across as a self-absorbed piece of shit who thought he was the funniest cast member to ever appear on the show.
What? Like, you noted that he laughs at his own fuck-ups. And you also noted that everybody breaks because they think the other people are funny. Like, does that not apply to him? And also, I might add, in the cowbell sketch, it's very clear that the reason he's laughing is because the size of Will Ferrell's shirt is extremely, extremely small. That's the clear reason why he's laughing in that one. Also, yes, laughing at your own jokes is good for yourself. It's good for you. there was a time where probably between 1998 and probably 2004-ish that I regarded comedy in the way that Lance, as a 30-something-year-old adult, regards it now. So like when I was between the age of 15 and 18, I regarded comedy as this sacred thing that you never break. You don't break. That's the thing that makes it funny. And when people around you get uncomfortable, that's what's funny. And to an extent, that is funny. Like Tom Green is a genius, and he harnessed that in an incredibly good way. But in conversation, in skits, in moments when things are absurd, to acknowledge that you have made a point that is absurd, or you've said something that's funny, it's not wrong. That is not wrong to do. Like if everybody just like didn't laugh at anything they ever said, a lot of the time people wouldn't know that things are jokes, because it's not always easy to understand another person's humor if you haven't spent a large amount of time with them developing a rapport. So saying something absurd and laughing at it isn't wrong. It's actually part of normal human communication. Like, have you ever existed in the world, like where you talked with other people? Like, I laugh at my own jokes a lot, but like the reason I do it is not because I think I'm a fucking genius. The reason I do it is because that's how I understand connecting with other people.
He would also be immortalized for this, instead in an episode of Family Guy.
And this is for laughing and looking at the camera during every sketch you've ever been in. What do you think you are, Carol Burnett? You think because she did it, it's okay for you? You haven't earned what she's earned, buddy.
I do want to say that is funny. They're making a joke at the expense of something that Jimmy Fallon very obviously does. And that's fine. Like that's fine. Making a 58-minute video essay about how he wears other people's skin because he laughs in SNL sketches. I don't understand that.
Anything about this guy, or his hard work, or his dreams, or his background when I saw him suddenly joining one of my favorite TV shows. So maybe that's where it all started. Behind the scenes was apparently an entirely different story. Jimmy was an alcoholic, and as a result would be very difficult to work with.
So that was just straight up sort of, he's an alcoholic, so you understand why he behaves badly, right? Like, it's just a characterization of being an alcoholic that makes him bad. Like, that's how that was set up. It's not a disease or a thing that people fight with or attempt to overcome because it's destroying their lives. Yes, it does destroy other people's lives around them. And yes, the fact that it is a disease is not an excuse for that. But I might be being a little oversensitive here because the person I care about most in this world is a recovered alcoholic. But I don't know. Maybe.
Jimmy was an alcoholic, and as a result would be very difficult to work with. The hours required to both write, rehearse, and star in SNL are notoriously long. Many of the cast members would also party after they clocked out, leading to an atmosphere similar to that of working at a nightclub. Jimmy's dance with the bottle would cost him friendships.
Yeah, so we're just saying that being an alcoholic means you're evil. That seems to be what's being said here. So I wasn't wrong.
As he was often hungover for his performances, this was supposedly the cause for half of his presence and breaking during taping. And then after he left, entered a dull couple of decades for the show. Sure, we got some incredible classics and another collection of the stars of tomorrow filling the bill, but compared to the years prior, it never seemed to catch up to its former glory days. And I'd argue never has.
Elon Musk is bad. That's how we gauge that that SNL has become bad. Because Elon Musk is bad. We put Elon Musk on SNL on the screen to show that SNL is now bad. You now understand, left-wing audience, that SNL is bad now, right? You get it?
Well, that's not all Jimmy Fallon's fault. I mean, because curses aren't real. Although he did...
What? Bo Burnham is an absolute fucking genius, but that does not, I do not understand why he cut away to that.
Almost suffer his own. People who leave SNL typically go in one of two directions. Either superstardom back when comedies actually went neck and neck with other Hollywood blockbusters, and not just as a miniature side scene in Marvel films to break up the tension in battles. You either became a Will Ferrell, or you starred in a few movies before starring in a few TV shows before starring in a few reality shows before everyone forgot who you were. And Fallon almost went...
Speaking of, where's my reality show arc? Why didn't that happen? Like, you get a bunch of money for being on reality shows. Why didn't I get that? Like, I was a public mess, right? Why didn't I get offers to be on? I got offers to be in porn, which, by the way, not going to happen. I didn't get offers to be on reality shows, though. I would have taken those.
Went in that direction. Not at first. Immediately after Saturday Night Live, he landed a major 2-film deal to lead in blockbuster films. First, the American remake of Taxi, co-starring alongside Queen Latifah. While not a complete bomb after the international box office returns, it wasn't necessarily a smash hit, and critics panned it as cliched and predictable.
Don't this shit! Was there any comedy film of that era that wasn't cliched and predictable? Like any? Old Lance is complaining about how way back in the day, comedies used to be a thing. They used to be able to pull a box office. Now comedy's relegated to just comic relief and Marvel movies. Well, there's a reason for that. Most comedy movies fucking suck. They were mostly bad. In fact, this leads me to a point that I have been making lately. Most movies suck. I just don't like movies, I have found. I dislike movies. Movies are fucking terrible. There are a few that are fantastic, but they are against the trend. The trend is that all movies are bad, and that is the reason why there are no more comedy movies, because it's so easy to identify what isn't funny versus to identify what isn't working about a dramatic scene. Also, why didn't I get offers for reality shows?
Next was Fever Pitch, which experienced the same box office and critical reception, not solidifying Jimmy Fallon as a Hollywood lead, and you only really get a few shots. He would go on to star in the romantic comedy Bridesman alongside Drew Barrymore, which did better commercially than either of the first two, but was so forgettable that you probably think I made it up, which I did. The movie was called Wedding Date.
Why make... You know what? Whatever.
It was with Deborah Messing. Or maybe I made that up, and it was really called Bridgeman. Unfortunately, we just don't have the technology to find out, so you have to assume all are wrong, or right. Then came his second big break.
What are we doing this for? What's the point?
Conan O'Brien, the undisputed GOAT, don't at me, was stepping up to replace Jay Leno on The Tonight Show, leaving his slot open.
Oh, somehow. Oh my God. So somehow Jimmy Fallon is at fault in the Jay Leno Conan O'Brien thing now.
For a new host, using his connections at NBC and surprisingly amount of grace left with Lorne Michaels, who endorsed him, Fallon auditioned for the position. While studio executives thought he was, quote, too wholesome for late night television, the scales eventually tipped in his favor, and he started his career in late night.
And now, here's your host, Jimmy Fallon!
It was a mess, clearly lacking the skills required.
It wasn't a mess. Also, again, this is probably somehow this week in those shows is probably when I spoke when that video from Jimmy, because it was very early in the late night with Jimmy Fallon run that I interviewed him, very early. And he didn't return the favor and interview me. I'm joking. I really don't care. He would have been in for a shock had he actually brought me on one of those shows, and like shortly after I'm in the whole fake girlfriend controversy thing. Man, if I'd been able to drag Jimmy Fallon into that one.
Prior to interview people, Fallon would often awkwardly laugh without his guests making a joke, a glitch that has infected him to this day.
Talking about where are we? Where are we and what staff?
We're in Big Sur.
All right, but are you in a cabin somewhere?
Yes.
Sorry. And so you go out to walk the dog?
No.
It's cool.
I sort of...
Don't they allow dogs in the hotel?
Aren't you supposed to let people talk on the show?
He couldn't nail down what the format should be, often changing up the routine between sketches and musical performances, with ratings dropping significantly from those of Conan. Eventually, he would...
I mean, that's literally what Conan is. sketches and you said he couldn't figure out what the format was. So the late night show had what late night show doesn't do that? Like other than Leno, which is the most milquetoast bullshit. Leno's basically like the only one who didn't do that stuff.
Turn to the blood of youth, sacrificing a digital goat in the altar of the dark web by combining social media interactions with sketches designed to go viral on the internet. The crossover actually worked, and it turned the ratings around.
So you're mad that he did something that acknowledged the way the world was moving, and it worked?
Jay Leno, a bastard in his own right, would bizarrely return to his original slot, bumping Conan out until his retirement, leaving Jimmy Fallon as the logical conclusion to take over The Tonight Show. He had gone from a dorky teenager doing his best Adam Sandler impression of "they're all gonna laugh at you" in his bedroom to Johnny fucking Carlson. And it worked.
Did he say Johnny Carlson?
In his bedroom to Johnny fucking Carlson.
He called Johnny Carson Johnny Carlson. How do you say Johnny fucking Carlson when you're talking about The Tonight Show? If you are spending any amount of time doing any amount of research on this, you should know that his name is not Carlson. Any amount. When you write the words Tonight Show, Johnny Carson pop up in the search thing. Yes, obviously this is evidence that Lance kills people and wears their skin, right? That's what this is.
And it worked. Jay Leno's ratings have been dropping after all the controversy surrounding his retirement / booting Conan out. Older audiences weren't paying the bills, and Fallon's combination of things like lip sync battles, box of lies, and hashtags pulled in the critical younger demographic that NBC had been craving. He secured the Roots as his in-house band, which not only is one hell of a get considering that Black Thought has to be one of the top 10 greatest MCs of all time, and Questlove is the greatest drummer in all of hip-hop history.
That is so not true at all. I don't know if you've ever watched the channel on YouTube called Drumble. I mean, this is not to shit on Questlove, I might add. I'm not shitting on him in any way. But your average hip-hop or gospel drummer in that area, people who you might consider to be completely unknown, who are on the Drumble channel, are all, like, incredible. Like, you can't call Questlove of the Roots the best hip-hop drummer ever. That's maybe the most influential, but the best? Absolutely not.
Then You Shoot Your Cousin, which came out the same year, would be their last studio album ever. So maybe the first real evil committed by Jimmy Fallon was robbing us all of more of their music. But that's petty, because they've always appeared to be having a blast on the show. And who is anyone to take away artists having the time of their lives and being paid well in the process? But not everything was perfect. Jimmy once again seemed to be struck with a notable problem. Despite having done late night for years, his ability to interview guests was still a struggle. A good interviewer, after all, is a good layup player, not the superstar. They're supposed to carry the conversation, avoid dead air, and make the guests come across as the funny one. And in that, Jimmy just always tries too hard.
Okay, there's a massive contradiction in what he's saying. He's saying that the host should try to make the guest come off as the funny one. And yet the problem with Jimmy Fallon is that he laughs at everything. I hate Lance. He's so, oh.
He did the testing me. Dude, how'd you pass the bar exam?
Lavishing praise on millionaire superstars who most likely already have egos inflated more than Steve Bannon's liver.
Got to get our right-wing dig in there. We got to talk about politics for no reason whatsoever. I don't think about Steve Bannon at all. Like, Steve Bannon is a non-thing in my world. I don't care about Steve Bannon. I don't hear the words Steve Bannon on enough of a basis that I would think to make a joke about him. But no, Lance is making sure that he continues to signal to his left-wing audience to make sure that they know that he's still a good boy, even though he's not talking about politics for real here.
Laughing so generously at moments that would become profoundly awkward for both the guests and the audience. Constantly trying so hard to please everyone. Which, knowing now where he came from...
He's a people pleaser. It's, you know, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but if you've ever had any reference with 12-step programs... Oftentimes, people who have problems with alcohol or are in the midst of people with alcohol are people pleasers, and that is often like something that comes along with the disease of alcoholism. But, you know, whatever.
It kind of makes sense. He worshipped comedians and movie stars his whole life, and now he had this job sitting face to face with them every night. How could Heracles not fawn over the gods when standing at the gates of Mount Olympus?
But you just said the problem is that he couldn't do that. Like you said, a good interviewer makes the guest look like the funny one. And now you're basically complaining that he's making the guest look like the funny one.
And it would be easy enough to say that they were the only gods he truly worshipped, but they came second to the lord of public perception, the desire to maintain his position. To be viewed as one of them, the gods, required his TV show and in turn his viewers. So Jimmy Fallon quickly became known as the desperate clown seeking validation from his graders.
Yeah.
Until they shit on him.
This is the greatest show on television because there is no host in late night that pretends to care the way you do.
Thank you.
And I love that. Isn't he amazing? And I love that so much. Oh, no. Thank you. I mean, no one captures phoniness the way you do. You prove that tall, handsome white men can make it in show business.
Steve Martin and Martin Short were the Poseidon.
So Steve Martin and Martin Short do this with people that they like. Like that's how they interact with people that they like. If you've ever seen Martin Short, for instance, interact with Conan O'Brien, it is exactly the same thing as this. In fact,
You look sensational.
Oh, I do. Really? Do I?
No, you do. I'm telling you, the new Queer Eye cast is doing wonders with you.
I haven't even talked to them. That's not fair.
No, because, I mean, you see, I think there's nothing wrong with looking...
Conan O'Brien is a serial killer who wears the skin of his mother.
the name of this video is No One Roasts Conan O'Brien Like Martin Short.
No, I mean, you're pale.
Yes.
You're a pale.
I'm a white man,
You
yeah.
make Mike Pence look like a character in Black Panther.
And they clocked Jimmy a mile away.
That's what Martin Short does. He clocks people. And he does it because that's how he interacts with people. He is a roaster, and he is one of the best roasters. And it's not because he thinks that Jimmy Fallon is bad. It's not because he thinks that these are legitimately 100% what Jimmy Fallon is. It's that they are things that people say about Jimmy Fallon that he is weaponizing to make, to exaggerate and make a laugh out of, exactly as he does with Conan. But this is evidence that Jimmy Fallon is evil, I guess.
He laughed the whole incident off, but it did rounds on social media, and for the first time, the lovable goofball suddenly was being seen in a very different light. A light that Jimmy had worked harder on curating than anything else.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, Jimmy Fallon has not worked on curating a thing. Like, you could say he is a good comedian or a bad comedian, but a curator? He is not that.
And why so many people came to love Jimmy Fallon was that he styled himself as politically neutral, the centrist of late-night hosts, often doing monologues.
Ah, yes. That's, of course, where we're going with this. 20 minutes in, and the problem with Jimmy Fallon is that he is a centrist. Let's go!
Surrounding current events like his contemporaries, but rarely taking a political position in one direction or another. During the 2007 writer's strike, he didn't march in picket lines or use his platform to support their struggle.
I need my writers. I need them real bad.
Unlike Stephen Colbert or Seth Meyers or Conan O'Brien, who were committed Democrats often speaking up about liberal causes.
Oh, wow, fuck that.
Conan was such an outspoken advocate for the writers' union and standing up for his workers that when he was tasked to return to late night despite the strike going on, he hilariously would just eat up airtime by spinning a coin endlessly, showing the value that the writers brought to the show.
Did you just boo me?
In contrast, Jimmy Fallon came across as remarkably politically neutral in a world where completely avoiding politics is nearly impossible.
This is working.
Can we also talk about the fact that these are not things that happened at this, like Conan O'Brien was not on TV during the recent writer's strike. That was a different writer's strike. And like Lance is framing this like these guys were both on at the same time doing things differently. But it has to be understood that we live in two different political climates. The writer's strike Conan was on during was a completely different political climate. than the one today. I do not blame Jimmy Fallon whatsoever for not getting political during the writer's strike. I don't blame him one bit, because I'll tell you, if there's anything we can say about overly political hosts, people who are characterizing based on, political teams, people who are doing what Lance is doing implicitly and sometimes explicitly, it's awful. It's literally the worst. I admire Conan O'Brien a great deal for how he handled the writer's strike that he went through. I think that it was actually wonderful. I think that it was actually great. But it was also at a time when there was no public support for unions. Unions were looked at as bad. Like, unions were looked at as a joke. Left-wingers were looked at as marginal. The most left thing you could be was John Kerry, right? That's very different than the climate that Jimmy Fallon had to deal with the writer's strike through. I don't know. I hate people who don't give a shit about context. And this is probably why a lot of people dislike me, because I say a lot of things that require context. But, like, they want easy, simple things where somebody says a word that's good or bad. That's what everybody... sorry, that's who Lance is attempting to appeal to, is people who you can easily satisfy with either a good word or a bad word.
For other people, maybe we should step into the anti-Trump lane and get in on this.
It's just not what I do. I think it'd be weird for me to start doing it now. I don't really even, care that much about politics.
That is not from 2008. I believe that's from 2018. Okay.
We should step into the anti-Trump lane and get in on this.
It's just not what I do. I think it'd be weird for me to start doing it now. I don't really even, care that much about politics. I got to be honest. I love pop culture more than...
Base God answer. Fucking Chad shit. I don't care. Fuck yes. Fuck yes. Well done.
2016, the night of the hare. This was at the height of the 2016 presidential race, one that at the time seemed like it was becoming more and more difficult for Donald Trump to win. The popularity of Obama was assumed to be transferring to Hillary.
So are we about to blame Donald Trump on Jimmy Fallon? Is that what we're about to do? Because we've really set up some humdingers, but if that's the next thing, then wowie wow wow.
Donald was already embroiled in numerous controversies and later have a recording leak of him admitting to sexual assault. Not that it was the first time Trump had been accused of it. After all, this man up to this point has over 25 women who've accused him of various forms of sexual assault and rape. His image was revolting to liberal eyes, and there...
Yeah, that's what we're setting up. We are setting that up. We are setting up that Jimmy Fallon gave us Donald Trump. We're actually, that is actually what is being set up here. If he says it and then tempers it, that's probably the most... am I saying that Jimmy Fallon single-handedly elected Donald Trump? No, I'm not saying that. But I also did just say that.
There he was, sitting across from the talk show host known for praising his guests. Desperate to maintain supreme neutrality, Jimmy didn't lavish praise on Trump, but gave him one of the most softball interviews he'd received in the election cycle. That's okay. No real harm done. You're not a political guy, Jimmy. You're the breaker. You're the wholesome one. You were just sitting across from an evil and you did what you were expected to. Not controversial in the slightest.
I gotta say, probably 8 months ago, if I said your name running for president, it would get a laugh. And then all of a sudden, you started seeing a switch. And I said your name, and people go, oh, what? And there was a real switch. And the same thing about Hillary Clinton.
Just cut to commercial, and life goes on. But alas, there it was, staring at him in the face. One of life's greatest mysteries. The Voynich manuscript of plumage. The question everyone had wondered, and it was inches from his palm. The toupee of the Covenant was staring him right in the face.
Okay, so Lance is going to actually detail this instance and call Trump's hair a toupee. This is actually the instance in which it was proven in public that it's not a toupee, that it's just really awful hair. Thin, sure. Primarily, though, it is awful.
And he couldn't resist its power.
You say yes? Go ahead. With my hairspray.
Now, to be completely fair, this moment did not change the course of human history.
Did I call it or what? To be completely fair, of course, that's not the only thing that put Trump in office. But it's also what I just characterized as the thing that completely changed the race.
Yes, it humanized the monster. Yes, it dominated the news cycle and made a lot of people see Trump in a much softer light than it did before. But that's not why he won the election. Hillary Clinton, being a war criminal who had decimated Libya, previously one of the richest countries in Africa, wasn't even what did it. A combination of factors, including the assumption that voters in the Rust Belt would swing for her the way they did for Obama when she never campaigned there, was a profoundly unlikable candidate, and generally didn't capture the same hope or energy that Obama had, were much bigger factors.
But
it did drop a bomb on Fallon's career. He was no longer seen as an enlightened nothing burger on politics. He was either a collaborator with the bad orange man, or a useful idiot who didn't realize how much damage 3 seconds would do to the fate of the world. He tried to...
See, it wasn't that big of a moment, except for, I'm going to repeatedly say, that it damaged the world.
Apologizing on his show and releasing statements, but once Trump won the election and liberals and Democrats were looking for anything to blame other than the fact that neoliberal policies keep exacerbating wealth inequality and America's hyper-capitalism is spiraling towards total failure, he was one of the excuses. He would try to save face by suddenly going hard. And by hard, I mean Al Pacino's ability to impregnate someone without Viagra.
As for Oklahoma, look at it. It looks like a Trump wig that Texas is wearing, so I basically won there too.
Making more political jokes aimed at Trump during his administration, focusing more on liberal issues, and siding more with what was expected of him. To be one of the fellow late-night hosts that's a good liberal, they'll stand up for LGBTQ plus people to the extent that it's commercially safe.
First time a drag queen has ever been put on the cover of...
Can we go ahead and say that's still not true? He is still entirely apolitical. He represents, in the same way Joe Rogan represents a normal person, Jimmy Fallon in many ways represents a normal person. Maybe not to the extent of Joe Rogan, but Jimmy Fallon and Joe Rogan, neither of them actually hate gay people or dislike LGBTQ people. In fact, they will, if pushed, defend them. The fact is that to a guest who is part of the sexual and gender minority segment of the United States, if he actually, again, does what Lance says is necessary for a good interview and make the guest look good, of course, absolutely, of course he is going to sound like a liberal. But the thing is he's not. He's just a guy who doesn't care about these things. And it's completely true that he doesn't care about these things. And that's what makes him right wing. Or somebody who aided right wing or what have you.
Drag queen! A drag queen! I am the queen of drag!
That zoom in on his face was meant to make Jimmy Fallon look bad. But what that actually was Jimmy Fallon going, oh my God, thank fuck, that's all that was. Also, we're actually going to show this clip of Colbert in a thing where we've called Colbert classically funny. We're going to show this segment in a thing where we've called Colbert classically funny.
Initiatives like getting vaccinated, effectively being the political equivalent of Dr. Strangelove, if it was directed by Seth Green, and that seemed like a safer position for Fallon. He recovered, but he also wasn't politically bulletproof anymore. He was one of the liberal elites now, even though politically he was as flaccid as Robert De Niro trying to impregnate, and so as performative progressives often...
He's characterizing Jimmy Fallon incorrectly. He just straight up, nobody looks at him as a liberal elite. Except for maybe right-wing people. But they look at Jimmy Fallon as the liberal elite for the exact same reason Lance is acting like being apolitical is a sin. To them, being normal, either of the sides, being an extreme right-winger or an extreme left-winger, to be normal is a signifier that you're the other side. And it's just, fuck off.
He was canceled by his past. You see, comedy changes. What was considered funny...
Come the fuck on. Seriously? Wow.
or edgy at one point in history can haunt your career in the future. And the foundation of Jimmy's career was actually based on one of the most controversial impressions he ever did, his Chris Rock. You see, Jimmy wasn't satisfied just doing the racist stereotypes. He had to go full method acting.
Not a lot of black folks on the show, right? Not a lot of black folks on the show. You know why? Because black folks don't like to answer questions. Oh, they want to be millionaires, but you got to ask that kind of questions like, in 1981, how many grams of crack did Rick James smoke when he recorded Super Freak?
If your method was being a Klansman, yes, Jimmy Fallon did full blackface. The modern minstrel show. And who are we kidding? This isn't cringe for modern audiences. This was never okay at any point in history. The history of blackface in America was to dehumanize black Americans.
The history of blackface is to blah, 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 blah. This is why people hate BreadTube now, might I add. Like, if you talk about something, you have to go, well, because the history of it has that. Yes, what he's saying here is true about blackface. But, like, people know blackface. People are aware of what it is and what it represents. It's just signaling. Like what this is, it's just signaling. It's not bringing this up because it's legitimately educating anybody. It's bringing it up because he's telling his audience how good he is. Like people know that you don't do blackface. But this is, I'm very smart for knowing the specifics.
Americans to ridicule their features and make them appear more like animals.
It objectifies African Americans and distances them from their humanity.
To justify their continued oppression through the history of the United States up until this day. So yeah, fuck him for doing this. He apologized and tried to make amends, but it wasn't even a one-off.
And also, can we go ahead and just say, like, his impression of Chris Rock is good? It may not be good that he did blackface for it, but also, can we add, like, the point of the skit was not Chris Rock is a dumbass and is bad, or that black people are dumbasses and bad. It was that he does an impression of Chris Rock. And I understand that doesn't necessarily make it all right, especially within the social context of the year 2000, where we have not had this, at least my generation and the generations after, have had this conversation about 400,000 times. But our man Jimmy Fallon fucking loves Chris Rock. For one,
he had done this character multiple times.
It's not a character. It's doing fucking impressions of Chris Rock. That's not wrong. It's not wrong to impersonate somebody. The point is, the point of the impression is not Chris Rock is black and therefore bad. The point of the impression is I am doing Chris Rock.
For the sketch and contributing to the dehumanization of black Americans. He would eventually bring on a variety of guests to discuss racial issues in America, such as Phoebe Robinson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He would learn about his whiteness for the first time from Robin.
This is the worst person you can cite on this issue because this person believes essentially that white people are different than black people. If you cite this bitch, you are absolutely bereft of any intelligence or rigor in terms of what you are promoting. You don't care. You haven't read this bitch's book. You don't care about any. This is, and I'm going to say this, this is the worst book on race you can read, White Fragility. And it's not because the concept of white fragility is inherently completely wrong. It's not. It's that this bitch frames it up as white people are different than black people. And if you dare act like this woman should be credible in the mainstream, oh my God, you don't get to call anyone a grifter ever again. Because if there is anyone who is a grifter, it's this goddamn woman who takes in $30,000 minimum on speaking engagements. That was released. Like it was released because there were people who were negotiating with her who released the negotiation material. And then there was also, you could also find on several speaker websites, she was listed and her going rate was listed. This is a woman who says that black people and white people are different and makes $30,000 every time she shows up somewhere to do so. Fuck you, Lance. Fuck you.
D'Angelo, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He would learn about his whiteness for the first time from Robin D'Angelo.
Well, the term white fragility, did you coin that term? Did you come up with that, or is that it?
I did.
What is it?
She did not, by the way. She absolutely did not come up with the term white fragility. I don't remember who did, but it was a black person. I don't even like. Okay, so there's a version of the concept of white fragility that has some validity. There's a version of it that is applicable very specifically in other like areas of life. It is not applicable specifically in absolutely every. Oh, here, let's throw this up real quick. Thanks, Tank. This is Chris Rock's opinion on the skit. Rock, who called Fallon a friend in a new interview with the New York Times, says, a lot of people want to say intention doesn't matter, but it does. Hey, man, I'm friends with Jimmy. Jimmy's a great guy, Rock told the New York. And by the way, I'm not doing an impression of him because I can't. I don't have a good impression of Chris Rock. If I did, I would be doing it right now. You bet your goddamn ass. And he didn't mean anything. A lot of people want to say intention doesn't matter, but it does. And I don't think Jimmy Fallon intended to hurt me. And he didn't. He doesn't have a racist bone in his body, Rock said of Fallon. But yeah, this bitch didn't even come up with the name of
what does it mean for exactly?
And don't get me wrong, personal growth is awesome and evolving is great, but doing it as a form of atonement because you got caught being a pretty hardcore racist when, I mean, at the end of the day...
What did we just post from Chris Rock? Chris Rock, the quote-unquote target there. You exactly, Fel. The opinion of a black man doesn't matter.
Not a thing that you could have just learned by talking to any of your various black coworkers or colleagues or writers or just any person in your life up to this point?
I'm going to counter that with all of those people were in his life before he was, I shouldn't say all, but the vast majority of those people were in his life before he was the host of the most prestigious late night talk show. All of them affiliated themselves with him, despite the fact that he did that skit in the year 2000. All of them, every one of them, wanted to be around Jimmy Fallon, even when Jimmy Fallon was bombing in the box office. To me, that says the skit wasn't that offensive.
But it seemed on the surface like enough work was being done, even though some could actually have been done to increase the amount of black people, say, working at NBC or the writer's room. But on the surface, Jimmy was mostly a good boy again, a good lib, ready to stand up for a cause, as long as that just means changing your social media avatar to a black square. If you wanted to do more activism than that, you're gonna have to sweeten the deal with something a lot more non-fungible. January 11th.
What the fuck is happening?
2022. Paris Hilton is the guest. Lots they could be talking about. Is she still pretending to be a DJ at this point, or selling something, no doubt? But no. What's this? She wants to talk about art. And she's brought some to show the rest of the class. It's a very generic-looking monkey. An ape, to be precise.
I got an ape too, because I saw you on the show with people, and you said you got a MoonPay, so I went and I copied you and did the same thing.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
This is your...
Jimmy Fallon is right-wing because NFTs.
This
That's
is your
mine.
ape.
A bored ape. Oh, and look, Jimmy has one too. They're both showing them off. How neat. I guess they just love modern art of the exceptionally average variety. But wait, there's more. For you see, they're not actually holding up art they like. They're holding up a physical representation of a digital object that can only be purchased through cryptocurrency, a non-fungible token, or NFT. You see, one of the great promises the internet had was unlimited free information and media, that people would be able to share the sum total of human knowledge and art and music and expression with one another, in a really cyberpunk fuck the corporations who try to profit off our creation kind of way. But since about 5 companies bought and control the majority of the internet now, something new and dystopian that got introduced is the idea of creating artificial scarcity for an infinitely replicatable JPEG. See, you can right-click and download the bored ape that Paris Hilton and Jimmy Fallon bought. I've done it right here. Here it is. You can pause the video.
Wow, you've debunked NFTs, Lance. The thing that failed and that nobody cares about now. It's 3 years later, and the whole thing is forgotten about. Thanks. Thanks for that, Lance. What can you tell us why blackface is bad again, like historically speaking? Like, we need to know that you know everything, Lance.
Save the screen, and then even print it at home at no cost at all. But what they're essentially doing a commercial for is the idea of buying this JPEG on the blockchain where only you can own it. Where in theory...
And meanwhile, all these left-wing people are just like, yes, NFTs are evil. Yes, it's enclosure. Yes, it's intellectual property. But they'll all sit there and talk about how great H-Bomb's plagiarism video is. It's weird, isn't it? How they all hate NFTs, but they all seem to think that intellectual property is to be defended. You know, the reason why NFTs are actually, or were actually, a problem when they actually mattered. It's funny, isn't it? It's almost like they're not actually intellectually consistent in any way.
Not even the image itself, but the hyperlink to the image was non-fungible. So you can buy a URL that's registered on the blockchain that will feature a JPEG. Granted, the site hosting it never goes down out of bankruptcy. But in theory, if the internet still exists, there'll be a permanent ledger, so you can sell it to another stooge of the highest variety.
You guys know what that is? Like 12 people know what it is. Well, I barely know. Can you explain what an NFT is?
Well, it's a non-fungible token.
Non-fungible.
If all of this sounds like the most insane, nightmarish concept in the world, that only heartless, greedy capitalists of the worst variety who despise both art, creation, and humanity itself conceive of...
Okay, well, if your problem is that, then you need to denounce the plagiarism in YouTube video immediately, because it's ultimately defending the exact same set of laws, practices, and property capture.
You're not alone. Most people did back in 2022.
NFTs, the latest supercharged FOMO product to come out of the blockchain ecosystem, and it's making a lot of people very rich. Well, to be more precise, it's making a lot of scammers very rich, because unless you got in early on the CryptoPunks or Bored Apes, the chances of hitting it big in the NFT space are next to none, and most have seen their Ethereum literally go up in smoke.
But a worthless bean needs suckers to pour...
No, it didn't literally go up in smoke because it doesn't literally exist. It can't go up in smoke. That's an example, might I add, of the word literally being used in a way that is annoying. I'm fine with most uses of it, by the way. The overuse of the word literally, I don't even care about it at this point. That right there was a specific instance of it being annoying.
Fiat currency into something to give it value. And all that really needs is a few wholesome, friendly celebrities who everyone trusts, like the exact image Jimmy Fallon had curated. So he not only promoted Bored Ape NFTs with Paris Hilton, but he actually went as far as changing his whole social media handles to Fallon.eth based on the Ethereum token, and would push numerous other projects. Here's Jimmy on April.
Cryptocurrency is right-wing, folks. That's what you're supposed to learn from this. Cryptocurrency is right-wing, and this is how Jimmy Fallon went full right-wing. Also, right-wing means capitalist. Capitalist means right-wing, and therefore left-wing means anti-capitalist, and not ideally speaking, but like materially speaking, there's some sort of real basis for it, because this stuff is bad, right? And our stuff is good, right? I hate this shit so much.
April 19th, 2022, posting a picture of another NFT project called Moonbirds with the message, "Fly, Moonbirds, fly," which magically also made the project peak at its value at 38.5 Ether, or $183,000 per hyperlink, meaning that a lot of people must have suddenly bought it thinking they were going to have a safe investment, much like the Bored Ape Yacht Club monkeys. But fast forward...
Okay, I want to go ahead and say this. I do investing. I invest money. I do it on a retail basis on Robinhood. Some of it is in cryptocurrency, some of it is in stock. There is absolutely no such thing as a safe investment. It doesn't exist. Just simply talking about NFTs does not make a case. There is some sort of definite super duper investment that's going to work for certain. And the fact that they promoted a thing that is culturally being talked about a lot, that they're getting in on, it's exactly the same shit as any person getting in on any YouTube trend. Like if you make a video about how honey is a scam, for instance, it's the same fucking thing, except for instead of regular currency, we're talking about attention currency. That's the difference between the video versus the crypto thing. People understand that NFTs are stupid. Like it's 2025. People know that it's not a good investment, but at the height of it, it was because it was a new thing and people were investing in it. That's how investing works. A lot of the time, investments don't work out. That's how investing works. I'm probably evil because I invest and I drive a Tesla, but like, I'm not rich or anything. I want to make that clear. I am not a rich person. I drive a used Tesla that I got for less than $28,000, and I am not, my savings account is not even 6 figures. I do not have a 6-figure amount of money in either my investments or my savings, just so that people are aware. I am not a rich person, but I am not, I feel like I have some degree of understanding as, you know, some retail investor out doing this kind of I never put any money in NFTs. And I'll tell you why. It's because it looked like a thing that was going to last about 5 seconds. And that's exactly what it was. I don't know what else to say. Like when a new coin comes out, a new cryptocurrency comes out, you don't just shove a bunch of money into it because it's new. It's because the likelihood is that it will be either a scam, an actual like scam, or it will be something that doesn't catch on, because there's literally a cryptocurrency launching every 20 to 30 seconds. And I'm not joking. That's probably actually a slower rate than is actually true. People launch cryptocurrencies literally all day, every day. No, but let's get into the history of it and learn why it's bad.
To today, and it's lost 90.8% of its value since the peak. One appearing mysteriously close to Jimmy and Paris Hilton's push, and a lot of the apes are actually now complete.
Oh, you mean they made some money off of the influence they have? Again, it's just getting in on trends. That's what everybody, including Lance, is doing. Like this is getting on the trend of saying that Jimmy Fallon, who used to be considered a wholesome guy, is an evil fuckface. Although the trend isn't normally that he's actually evil, but rather a troubled man who has issues.
Completely worthless. Moonbirds, on the other hand, must have flied into a window and broke their necks, because the project is doing even worse. Now worth 98.6 of its original value since the Jimmy peak push. Meaning anyone who bought it and is still holding one today lost about $180,000. Whether it was one of the many exposés that came out about how the Bored Ape Yacht Club logo is suspiciously like the Nazi Waffen SS one.
Let's say that's 100% true. Who gives a shit? I'm going to be generous and say they're trying to make everybody Nazis by doing something edgy on the internet. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Why do you care? Like, I'm sorry that a bunch of people got swept up in an investing thing. That's exactly what everybody does every time a bubble starts, though. That is, like, and it's amazing, rather than criticizing this as an inherent element of capitalism, an inherent problem in how the capitalist economy cycles, which, by the way, it is. Instead of that, these are scams. By calling these things scams, which, by the way, are not scams, they're literally just investments, bad investments, but investments. By calling it that, you're making the implication that it is irregular, that it is not a fundamental part of the capitalist economy. And it is. It absolutely is. All of these things are above board. What they did with the Bored Apes is above board. You don't have to like that. But if the problem that you have is that it's bad, you don't like how it works, you don't like it, it's not that they have a black circle with a skull in the middle of it. It's not that. It's bad because it's part of the capitalist cycle. Contradictions build up to a point where it looks like either there's a lot of money or it looks like there's no money, and everybody has to do something drastic in order to get in or out. That's what's going on at all times in the capitalist economy. If you have a problem with that, it's not a scam. It's not a bug. It's not a lie. It's not a pretense. It's literally part of the capitalist cycle. If you have a problem with that, that's your opportunity to be big old leftist influencer, and you're not doing it.
With specifically 18 teeth, a common number for white supremacists, or numbers of other conspiracies and racist connections to the project, or just the fact that the fad of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a hyperlink to a JPEG that people can download for free, but aren't really because of how hideous all machine learning replicated art is, the fad of NFTs passed.
All machine learning art is bad.
And it wasn't safe for Jimmy Fallon to brand himself as one of their most mainstream hucksters next to Matt Damon. So he simply changed all his social media from the owl logo and the .eth to the plain old Jimmy Fallon. Outside of some pending lawsuits, he mostly got away with being one of the most
Guys, he just tried to indict this man because he changed his social media avatar. The NFT trend ended, and to show just how evil Jimmy Fallon is, Lance has noted that he changed his social media avatar and name away from the current trend and back to just his name and a photo of him.
Prominent NFT pushers on late night TV with barely any criticism.
Next up, we have fact. NFTs are the latest Ethereum-powered cryptocurrency craze. Fiction, if you repeat that sentence to your grandfather, his head will explode.
Now, you could make a very strong argument that there are strict FEC regulations in place that state that public figures, including TV hosts, have to disclose any material connections to brands or products they endorse. They mandate that any paid promotion or sponsorship on broadcast television must be clearly disclosed. Jimmy Fallon not only promoted the Bored Apes on live TV, but also MoonPay, a cryptocurrency market that Paris Hilton has direct investments in.
Through MoonPay. Okay, there it is. There it is. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, because that's an exclusive to Jimmy Fallon problem. Yeah, because that's not exactly what all entertainment is set up to be. Yeah. That's not what the entertainment industry literally is.
This is real. MoonPay, which is, I'm figuring, I did my homework. Okay. MoonPay, which is like PayPal, but for crypto.
It's also unclear if Jimmy was gifted a moonbird or a Bored Ape like many other celebrities had been, essentially being given a token worth $300,000 and then told to harmlessly promote it like he...
He's literally saying he owns it to promote it. Is that not disclosure? Yes, it is exactly disclosure, in fact. To say I have an investment in this thing as he promotes it is precisely disclosure, which he did. I have a moon thing or a whatever. It's disclosure. Like, you don't just have that thing. That's a thing that costs money. So therefore it's an investment. Is it kind of slimy how he directly or doesn't directly disclose? Sure. But show me brand integration that isn't like that in literally everything.
I just think it's really cool.
Like, do you think the Olive Garden gift card that Sonic got at the end of the first of the 3 movies, you think that's not brand integration? Granted, it's a very funny joke, and I actually think it's a good brand integration, but does it explicitly disclose that Olive Garden paid for some of the budget of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie? No. However, you see it in the movie and you're like, well, that's a product placement. Because it's done enough for you to know that it's a product placement. That's what disclosure is. For you to understand the relationship that the thing has to it, that's enough to count as disclosure legally, at least in terms of legal precedent. If you have a problem with legal precedent, might I add, your problem is no longer with the individual act. It is with the system itself. And that is the argument you should make.
So maybe they all thought it was harmless? It's crypto after all, the wild west of scamming. So do FEC regulations apply to technology so advanced and revolutionary that it's transformed the...
Can we again just talk about the fact that a talk show, it revolves around people coming on to promote the thing they're currently making money off of? like that's what a talk show is. But whatever. Yeah, Ben. Yes, I want him to ask every one of his guests who are promoting a movie how many points they have on the back end. I mean, sometimes that comes up, but I mean, you don't have to do it to disclose the fact that they're making money off the thing.
Ability to right-click save into a divorce machine.
Too bad if you don't like it, cause haters gonna hate it.
And you can just tell what a little worm he is when he actually comes close to being called out on his shit.
Alexa, how bad are Amazon working conditions?
Alexa, stop.
Sure.
Alexa, stop. Here we go. All right, I have to.
Alexa. No, Alexa.
No, Alexa. This is me time now.
Because I have to pick up my kids.
Stop, please, Alexa. Please listen to me.
In this clip, John is obviously having some fun, having a laugh, as the British would say, at Jimmy's expense. But he raises a very serious point multiple times that clearly Jim is petrified by. It's one thing to lose the public's love or trust, but it's an entirely different one to lose corporations. After all, they can weather you through the hard times if you're willing to do a little atonement. Oh, my owl's gone. Did he ever pay anyone back? Does he still have them?
I couldn't even do that to my audience.
Why in the fuck would he have to pay anyone back? Are you fucking kidding me? It is an investment. It is a bad investment. No one has to pay anyone back when an investment goes bad. Otherwise, the problem that you have is, again, with the system. That's the critique you should make, because it puts us in a completely different space than blaming individuals for every little stupid thing that happens in the system, and instead talks about the thing that is upstream of those actions.
Tonight. Are you kidding me? I can doubt I'd make money off the NFTs.
Did he set them free, cashing out on the backs of the labor of his fans and cast? Speaking of cast, the first cracks in the dam started to form on May 2nd, 2023, when the second major writer's strike to happen under his professional career took place. Due to the rampant abuse, underpaid staff, poor contract jobs, outsourcing more and more work to AI, and the copyright ramifications of all that, thousands of writers took to the streets. In solidarity, the Actors Guild joined them, and soon the biggest names in hell yeah workers' rights were marching. There was Zaddy himself, Bill Nye the Worker Guy, and Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah, fuck Bill Nye, who's like a Malthusian weirdo. And also fuck the guy that everybody likes and was in the Imagine video. I can't remember his fucking name right now. The Mandalorian. Fuck him.
Okay, reminding again for a second here, Conan and John Oliver and Seth Meyers all showed enormous support for the workers and writing staff, offering to pay for additional weeks of their salaries, or in the case of Oliver, fundraising through live comedy shows to help pay their wages. You see, despite being rich, famous, successful, comparable in every way to Jimmy, they still saw their writers as necessary parts of their workplace, and agreed that if they were well-fed and doing awesome and can afford first-class flights everywhere, that every struggling writer should have more rights enshrined in their goddamn contracts. Jimmy Fallon said publicly that he wouldn't have a show.
Okay, so we're talking about how Jimmy Fallon doesn't appreciate his writers, but then we acknowledge that Jimmy Fallon...
Writers should have more rights enshrined in their goddamn contracts. Jimmy Fallon said publicly that he wouldn't have a show if it wasn't for his writers, and that he supports them all the way. Then the next day was called out by one of his head writers, Sarah Kobos, for missing the writers' meeting where they were told they weren't getting paid anymore. Quote, at a meeting Jimmy wasn't even at. We are told NBC decided to stop paying us after this week and end our health insurance after this month if the strike is ongoing. They won't even tell us if we will technically be furloughed.
So you're telling me that Jimmy Fallon wasn't present for corporate saying what corporate's going to do? Like, I'm going to say this. Even if Jimmy Fallon was a shithead, the problem here is not Jimmy Fallon. The problem is NBC, which is always the problem when you're doing strike work with a union. It's the corporation. It's not any individual who is or isn't supporting the strike. But, you know, I would buy a scab. This is a thread by a scab, might I add. I should note that I am a non-union and not a striking worker. This is literally a scab. And here's the thing: I'm not against. I don't want to go and be like scabs are the biggest fuckers of all time. They're not. The problem's the corporation. It's never not the corporation. It is never not the corporation. I want it to be very clear. But like, I promise you, people like Lance care about people scabbing. That's what this is. This is scabbing.
Just active employees who aren't paid. And the dam had cracked. Water was pouring in everywhere in the form of online disgust, cancellations, hypocrisy maxing, and of course, Jimmy immediately realizing that saying you support the writers while in actuality thinking of them as expendable as the social mores over minstrel shows, immediately reversed course.
We were told we were going to get paid until this coming Friday, and that we would have health insurance through the end of the month. NBC will pay us through the end of this week and next week, so 2 weeks, and that Jimmy will be paying us for a third week so that we will get 3 weeks pay.
He not only stated emphatically that he'd pay for the next couple of weeks, but joined the great PR of podcasting with people who care more about these issues than you, so you can make it appear like you're actually doing the bare minimum for the standards of the time. For an A-list TV celebrity who has potentially millions of dollars in undisclosed crypto earnings.
This is why I hate leftists. Right here. This is the ultimate reason I hate leftists. Their problem, if you ask them, is of course the corporation. But where is their focus? Where is their effort? Where does it go? Does it go into outlining the problems with the corporation? Does it go into resisting the corporation? Does it go into those things? No, they don't care. Like, notice that he's not talking about this strike in any real context other than Jimmy Fallon bad. That's it. Like, and would he have even talked about this strike in a video in any recent time, if not for trying to make Jimmy Fallon look bad? No, absolutely not. That is the point of the leftists. Like, they don't care about the actual thing that they claim to care about. They care about the individuals attached to it that are either good or bad in their eyes. That's why I hate this shit. It's fake. It feels like they're just running out of chuds to dunk. That's what it is. They're having to invent chuds. I don't like that Jimmy Fallon laughed during SNL skits 20 years ago. So he's a chud now.
Which brings us all back to one of the most haunting episodes in television history. DJ Khaled's pre-birthday celebration. The laclube, the candles, the laughter, and the wholesome meal shared between two best friends. What were these two men hiding? every single frame of this macabre spectacle being haunted by a grim reality hiding just beneath the surface. And that's when it all clicked. This episode aired on November 22nd, 2024. DJ Khaled, like Fallon, was someone else who held and promoted the Bored Ape Yacht Club. His personal token being number 112224, the exact same date as when this originally aired. And it gets even stranger, my friends, because the value of Jimmy Fallon's Bored Ape sits at, I kid you not, 11.2224 Ethereum. Okay, I have to stop this right now. It's just really too easy to make up anything you want on the internet and then have it spread, and I really want to prevent a certain percentage of conspiracy theories or cults that will arise from this to stop right now. None of that is true. It was just something I completely made up just to build suspense. Well, I'll explain more later, but the fact that both DJ Khaled and Jimmy Fallon own and promoted Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs, that's true. And the reality is that most likely they just lost a huge amount of their value, anywhere between 30 and in some cases 1% of the originally held value. So yes, it was a massive scam, but again, one that you could accuse Eminem or Post Malone or Paris Hilton of equally participating in. Yet, are they evil incarnate?
What in the fuck?
Is there something that makes Jimmy Fallon particularly evil? Answering that would become much simpler as the final remaining pieces of the dam shatter and the reality of Jimmy Fallon's abuse return to salt the earth.
Dire mental and physical impacts from the mistreatment and stress, a revolving door of Yes Men showrunner.
So, like 40 minutes in, we admit that the beginning of the video is just clickbait. It's fake. It's something he made up. But this is not bringing the veil back and showing this video as some sort of parody of true crime or anything like that. No. It's just that he made up something in order to get people to watch this video about how Jimmy Fallon is evil. And then rather than just letting it die off, which he could have done at this point, I had forgotten about it, he brought it back up and was basically like, I lied to you to get you to watch this. And wonders why people don't like BreadTube. Like, this is, it's what's happening in these BreadTube circles. Like, this isn't uncommon. They're inventing controversies. And Lance is doing it probably the most literally, the most physically, like actually inventing a controversy and pretending to use it in order to service his agenda of hating Jimmy Fallon. But like so many of these controversies, things that I have said and been used as fodder in reactions, for instance, so many of these things are not real controversies, and they have to misinterpret them and represent them in a way different than how I said them in order to make people mad at me. And I am certainly not the only one. I am not even a prime target of BreadTube, but I've seen that happen more than once. They have to invent the problem. And I mean, he's literally shown it as bare as it possibly can be laid bare here in this video.
And ineffective HR made it impossible for employees to enact change even when they did speak up. One former employee told Rolling Stone, mentally, I was in the lowest place of my life. I didn't want to live anymore. I thought about taking my own life all the time. After the expose was published, representatives from NBC released a rather hollow defense of the program.
A nightmare, a toxic work environment, mandatory cry rooms. Multiple exposés came out with interviews from former staff describing a tyrannical work environment where
So cry room, mandatory...
Jimmy can explode in anger at any given time, often yelling at his staff.
5 big booms!
Okay.
Boom!
Okay. Yeah, boom, yeah, 5 booms. Okay, so now it's Halloween.
Many of whom had to seek out mental health counseling as a result of how intense it was. Once again, accusations of alcoholism, showing up to rehearsals drunk, and erratic behavior began to dominate the headlines. Finally, the sordid truth of what a monster Jimmy was behind the lens was seen the light of day, and he would finally have to reckon with the inevitable public backlash. And... well, yeah, nothing really happened. He apologized.
Yeah, because when people saw those Jimmy Fallon controversies, or hell, when they saw the Ellen controversies, when Ellen is not an alcoholic, might I add, there was never any reasoning for Ellen's anger. People don't really care about that stuff because they all have jobs that suck so much worse than making content. I'm sorry, but getting yelled at Jimmy Fallon while you're writing comedy, it might suck. I'm not going to say that it feels good. I'll bet it doesn't. Have you ever worked in retail? Have you ever had to perform happiness and helpfulness to people who are being an absolute fucking asshole to you? They are just a person who has wandered in and is purchasing something and are treating you as though you are the scum of the earth. That is so much worse than a high stakes situation in which not high stakes, high pressure situation in which everyone is trying to produce a day's worth of content every day. To work in retail is the most depressing shit I've ever experienced in my life. And people, not the most, I shouldn't say the most depressing shit I've ever seen. It is very depressing. It's one of the things that has pushed me to the brink in the course of my life. And then the fact of the matter is, Jimmy is likely an alcoholic. And there are reasons that we should not be simply associating alcoholism with evil. Lance has not taken any time to add nuance to it. Just every time he mentions alcoholism, it's usually in conjunction with, look at how bad Jimmy Fallon is. That it is an excuse for this behavior. It is absolutely not, in any way, shape, or form. The way that he uses addiction as kind of just a buff on, like, Jimmy Fallon is bad. Like, imagine Jimmy Fallon is bad is a statistics category in a role-playing game. Lance uses addiction as a buff on Jimmy Fallon is bad. That's how he works this. He never says, like, Jimmy Fallon is an alcoholic and that's why he's bad. But he groups alcoholism into Jimmy Fallon is bad. He uses it as a buff. I mean, it certainly exacerbates people's behavior, but it's not the reason. In fact, people's behavior is often the reason they're an alcoholic. It's the other way around. You have to change things about your life in order to fight alcoholism. It is a disease, and the cure is in the way that changes of diet are the cure, not necessarily the cure, but the means to mitigate type 2 adult onset diabetes, for instance. You have to change aspects of your life in order to deal with alcoholism, because it's not just drinking or not drinking that's the problem. It's a disease, and it's a mental disease. It's a problem that you have to address elsewhere in order to actually defeat. Lance is not treating it that way, and it's gross.
They went through some showrunners, but Jimmy's ability to avoid any real responsibility for any of his shitty actions once again prevailed, as his ratings never suffered too damaging a hit, and the Enlightened Centrism Express makes another pit stop.
See, we're back at centrism. And as we all know, centrism is a keyword, or sorry, a stand-in word for Jimmy Fallon is right wing.
For one another. Speaks out about one another. Why do bad men have great things happen to them? How do they keep getting away with it? How is there no justice in this world? It's 5 a.m. You wake up from yet another poor sleep. The smell of cheap cigarettes and whiskey staining the morning dew. Shortly after heating up a can of beans and the black sludge that passes for coffee, you close out your campsite to hit the open road. You're not sure how many days you have left, so you set out to make the most of your final breaths. After traveling through perilous terrain and avoiding thieves or great beasts looking to eat you, you arrive to meet Rainsfall, the chief of the Tapiti tribe. An outlaw yourself, no stranger to the oppression of state enforcers, you find a kind of kinship with him and his son Eagle Flies. Their people have been facing genocide at the hands of the new forming US government for generations, and your lifelong friend and outlaw partner Dutch is fixing to help them fight the US Army. But you come to learn that Dutch isn't a noble man, that he's a scoundrel, willing to lie, cheat, and steal and kill to get his way. You weren't much different, but being at death's door has changed things. You know if you add fuel to Rainfall's son Eagle Fly's desire for war, that it'll destroy what remains of their people. You know that Dutch doesn't care if they live or die. So what do? This is the world of Red Dead Redemption 2.
What in the fuck is happening? We just got done saying that Jimmy Fallon is basically evil with the like 50th justification for why he's evil that doesn't make any sense. And now this reads like a different video. This is the world of Red Dead Redemption 2. What the fuck is happening?
Cinematic video game by Rockstar that is so groundbreakingly massive it allows the player to completely escape into a different time period. You can spend months just becoming an expert poker player, become the most feared bounty hunter in the land, or just slowly transport goods on a rickety cart for sick and dying children. The choice is yours. How you play determines how others around you will react and behave when they encounter you. Are you a dreaded outlaw, a two-timing scoundrel without true grit, or one of the few noble heroes who can see right from wrong and ultimately will do and say and act upon what is just, not just because of how others will treat you, but because it could lead to a better world even if you only have moments left to appreciate it. A code of ethics. And it works particularly well because of its depth. Playing the game as a monster as you treat it.
What? What in the fuck is happening?
It equally as one back. People will pretend like their hotel rooms are full or their bars are closed. Conversely, if you go out of your way to say save a German family early in the game, Its tale travels throughout the towns, and at the most random moment comes back to reward you in ways you never expected. Then, when you least expect it, your character will randomly collapse and discover that he's dying of tuberculosis, making mortality suddenly feel like a visceral part of the experience, even though you probably had to die about 1,000 times to get that far in the game. And suddenly the idea of accruing as much gold from robbing trains or buying the most expensive horse seems completely trivial. What comes into focus is how you'll be remembered. What legacy will you leave behind? How did your presence help or hurt the world and those you love?
And guess what? I won.
Yes, no, we won.
That year, I won.
On November 22nd, 2024, the Gaza Strip in Palestine had endured the equivalent of 3 atomic bombs worth of explosives dropped upon it. A year of forced starvation with children drinking sewage and eating garbage to try and survive. And
it was literally just to say how you are remembered matters, which, by the way, for me, people who criticize others based on the idea of what do you think your legacy is going to be, they're people who, in my opinion, are just giving you evidence that they really, really care about how other people think about them. Because let me tell you, my actions are not dictated by what I believe my legacy will be. In fact, it's almost not something I even want to think about at any point because it involves me being dead. And I don't like the idea of being dead. But what the fuck? And then we shift to Jimmy Fallon for a second for a clip that I guess is supposed to make him look bad in some way. I don't know how. I'm not even really sure how it's supposed to make him look bad, but it's clearly supposed to. And now we're in Rafah, in the Gaza Strip.
A near complete destruction of schools, hospitals, churches, and mosques. While thousands upon thousands of kids, mothers, sisters, brothers, fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers, great-great-grandfathers lie dead underneath the rubble. The Lancet currently estimates that there is over 150,000 dead civilians, the majority of whom are women and children.
And I hate to be frustrated when these are things that are being said, because I agree with putting this information out there very much. This is information that if you have a way to say it, you should put it out there, because there's a lot of people who will deny this. I'm not immediately saying like there's something wrong here, but my cynical senses are going off because of the context of this. It's baffling.
And all of us for the rest of our lives will ask ourselves if we did enough. And the answer is no, we didn't. And Jimmy Fallon has on DJ Khaled on a show this far into it. A man whose parents were refugees from Palestine to America. Someone who's become one of the largest celebrities in the United States, living out the American dream just like anybody else. No one is expecting Jimmy to scream from the river to the sea or anything. But even saying the word Palestinian, neither of them could do it. They ate.
This is the most intellectually, emotionally, and systemically bankrupt fucking shit. What the fuck? You're mad because Jimmy Fallon and DJ Khaled, might I add, having Palestinian refugee parents, which you literally noted. You're mad that on DJ Khaled's birthday, they didn't do basically like the equivalent of a land acknowledgement.
The national dish of Palestine, maklube, right there in front of the eyes of the world, and just said that it was an Arab dish, and then moved right on to commercial break.
It's called maklube. It's an Arabic dish called maklube. My mom makes it for me.
An estimated 72 Palestinian women and children died that day from US-made bombs dropping on them, while Khaled and Jimmy pretended like it wasn't happening.
Well, you know what? Let me tell you right now, a lot of people in Palestine would be very, 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 very happy to have that makluba right now. There's starving children in Palestine. It's literally, this video is literally your parents telling you to finish your plate because in Africa there are starving children, which is a bullshit reason for you to finish your plate. You should not eat more than you feel like you should eat. Jimmy Fallon is evil incarnate for this.
His forced and fake laughter no longer felt annoying, but now it was somehow slowed and echoing in the background of a big crushed soundscape, layered with screams.
Let me just say, I had no idea what a makluba even fucking was before watching your video criticizing them for only eating a makluba. Now I know of a thing that makes that looks tasty. It's a Palestinian dish, and yes, I will actually seek this out and try it. If you want to talk about some sort of positive cultural exchange. There it is right there. You fucking idiot. But wow, this is offensive.
Dreams and distortions of horrors beyond comprehension.
So is that it? Beneath the abusive workplace, the rejection of labor rights, the creepy obsession with being loved, the alcoholism, the not standing up for...
The creepy obsession with being loved. He just... Wow, is that a self-report? There are two possibilities that would cause you to use that as a critique of someone else. The first, projection, the idea that you project onto other people the things that you either like or don't like about yourself. There's that. He could be criticizing Jimmy Fallon because he sees in Jimmy Fallon something that he hates of himself. That is possible. But I think more likely here, this is evidence of exactly how fucking bereft of any real integration in society these leftist fucks are. They have absolutely no fucking idea why somebody would seek out love. Can you imagine how fucking alien you are to a normal person as you point at Jimmy Fallon and say, he's creepy because he wishes to be loved? Do you understand how fucked up that is? Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone.
As workers are going to any strikes, the cryptocurrency scams, the NFT con artist stuff, and I mean,
shut the
I mean, Charlie Chaplin married a 16-year-old. He's way worse.
After all, couldn't his entire story apply to other people? Like, say, Jimmy Kimmel, an unfunny white douchebag who started out in a sketch comedy show, made racist jokes and laughed at his own sketches, went viral for doing blackface, moved on to late-night comedy with a rocky start, but eventually broke out and had success as he slowly rebranded into liberal politics and anti-Trump routines, known behind the scenes for his difficult behavior and publicly supporting Israel numerous times through genocide without ever standing up for Palestinians? Maybe it's kind of the big problem with all of them. John Oliver spoke up, Hassan Minhaj spoke up, but the majority of entertainers, the majority of musicians, did not.
I think one of the biggest problems with Jimmy Fallon is the same problem with all of us, in that sometimes we don't do what's right or we don't stand up for a just cause unless it's demanded of us.
And maybe that's the...
And that is why we are all evil incarnate, which is also why we should be socialist. Like, this is why people don't want socialism. This is because every single myth of the Red Scare, these motherfuckers take and they go, yes, but it's good. And I like it. I like that I tell people how evil they are. I like that. I like that I'm needlessly critical to normal human things. I like that I use diseases as a means to reinforce my point about how someone is bad. I like that.
The most horrifying thing of all, that Jimmy Fallon's true evil lies in the banality of liberal apathy. Jimmy Fallon does the bare minimum in what's most safe and comfortable, and as he's pulled in one direction, I'm sure he'd prefer to never have to speak about anything political. He'd prefer to just be endlessly loved by his audience, by his cast and crew, by his fellow performers, but most importantly, by the world. To live amongst the stars, he spent his entire...
What a fucking crime. What a fucking crime. Wanting to be loved. What a fucking crime.
Their life worshipping. And Jimmy's always been a leech attached to the rest of the cast, draining the humor and love from the performance while trying to live off the nutrients of more famous cast members.
Holy shit! I hate this fucking purist shit. Like, the point of comedy is that the thing is weird. If the performers can't keep a straight face because the thing is weird, the comedy is really, really there. I'm sorry. And yes, he's a light touch with laughter to a point where it is a bit absurd, and it is worth criticizing him for in some instances. We're also talking about 2 decades ago when he was on a sketch comedy show for a few years.
He went from being an intestinal worm living off the remnants of Will Ferrell to interviewing Will Ferrell in the debut episode of his talk show, never anywhere close to his talent, but able to bask in it nonetheless. He's a living representation of the infestation and disease that is tolerance and apathy for the wicked.
This is the type of person that doesn't understand why you have a silly character and a straight man. This is the kind of person who's like, I really liked Will Ferrell in that movie, but I didn't like Paul Rudd because Paul Rudd, like, he wasn't funny. You know, he just kind of, even though like Paul Rudd in like Anchorman, for instance, was very, very funny and was not a straight man. I'm using Paul Rudd because Paul Rudd has played the straight man in many, many a film. But wow.
Fallon would never change unless there was immense public pressure to do so. And I mean, the same thing applies to so many different celebrities who aren't really going to take a stance or do anything for...
Yeah, because celebrities are the problem. It's definitely celebrities. Celebrities aren't a distraction or anything, and focusing on this isn't a distraction from the actual issues, from the things that I could, if I wanted to, substantially dive deep into the real problems of. No, I have to talk about the celebrities.
For a cause, unless that's what's asked of them. There's a difference between the ability to cancel someone because they're terrible, and to be totally honest, Jimmy seems totally impervious to all of that, so we are the ones who give these people all this power by being their fans.
Demand drives supply. He's literally telling us that the way that capitalism works now is exactly the same as it did in early industrial capitalism, as scarcity was actually a problem. Not that we were creating scarcity, but that there actually was scarcity. This is, again, that betrayal of that idiotic consumption is the most important thing. Demand drives supply, outdated understanding of anything in the world. Like, again, I will say this. Companies create a product and they have to market demand into existence. Demand does not dictate what these companies do at all. At all. And also, I'll say this again. Everyone could hate Jimmy Fallon. Would that make him not famous anymore? No. No, it would not. In fact, it would probably make him a more valuable quantity. Because actually, conflict is the thing that drives engagement more so than simple milquetoast centrism, as you are criticizing here. But no, that's not the problem. That's not the problem here. Nah.
By watching them, by sharing their videos, by loving their content, we are the ones that prop them up to become these rich, famous celebrities that have...
No, we aren't. The people who own the media structures are. The people who say, I want to put that guy on, those are the people who make that guy famous. It's not us. We don't do it at all. If they want to jam fucking James Corbin down our fucking mouths for years at a time, they can. 0 people liked that man. Corden, not Corbin, Corden. James Corden, who was the worst. If you want to talk about a late night show host who's a piece of shit, it's that guy. And he doesn't have the excuse of being an alcoholic, which, by the way, still not an actual excuse. But I'm saying he's just naturally a shithead. But no, his show's over, so it doesn't matter.
Of everything, and if they're not willing to actually do the bare minimum by the standards of the time, we should be demanding better.
I really thought it was over. That was it. I go.
He even said it. We should be demanding better. This is socialism, folks. This is where we are with socialism. In 2025, the voices who are most keenly associated with socialism in all of content are the ones that are telling us that we have to engage in market dynamics with the capitalist system. We have to demand better. That means we have to consume better, though. We have to make better choices as consumers.
That's it. I'm canceled. Yeah, I started my own hashtag Jimmy Fallon is over party. Yeah. I was like, I had a good run. I had 10 years in the business.
On February 5th, 2025, after Joe Biden had been defeated and Donald Trump once again came into office, a lot of late-night hosts must have gotten a memo because they were finally allowed to say the word Gaza on air. Shortly after taking office, Donald met with the war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu in the White House to announce the final stages of the complete takeover of the Palestinian Strip. Proving that things can always be worse under his command, Trump suggested the U.S. would be taking over the Gaza Strip and turning it into a casino resort.
And I don't want to be cute, I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad, this could be so magnificent.
On cue, Jimmy Kimmel and others would push back by making dad jokes about an ongoing genocide. And Fallon was no different.
Trump wants to take over Greenland, Canada, and now the Gaza Strip. He's like everyone at 2 a.m. drunk ordering off Amazon. I'm gonna add Gaza Strip to the cart. I want Gaza Strip.
At the end of the day, The Tonight Show, like all...
What a crime. Evil incarnate.
Late-night shows on major television networks is a corporate product.
It's because the socialism these people are putting forward is just, you need to demand better. You need to consume better. You need to act as a better consumer. There's no ethical consumption under capitalism is not a good argument against them either, because it still allows us to frame consumption under the ethics paradigm. I know that somebody watching this will think the phrase, no, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. That means this is all a stupid criticism. Yes, it is a stupid criticism, but we should never frame consumption as ethical or unethical. We shouldn't even consider it as an ethical idea or non-idea. Ethics is completely dissociated from consumption to me. I don't think about it like, oh man, the system makes me consume unethically. I don't care. I don't. No, it doesn't. The system does not make me consume unethically. My consumption has nothing to do with my ethics. None. Zero. So I will push back against it in every way. Let's finish this. Wow.
Much like how Target and Meta pivoted instantly with the times to dropping DEI initiatives and protections for LGBTQ plus people, liberal comedians were more free to criticize U.S. foreign policy for
our signaling time.
And as milquetoast or as outright revolting as this is, depending on your politics, it's safe to say it's the way it'll continue unless something changes. I get that it can be difficult to talk about serious issues. I even delayed bringing it up myself by creating some bizarre crypto conspiracy, because like anyone who considers themselves a comedian, I'd rather make you laugh than cry. It's easier to pretend we're only an election away from things getting better.
There's 8 minutes left in this 58-minute video, and Lance just made it clear that the point of this video was to make you laugh. This is a 58-minute video that I guess is supposed to be comedy, but not in the way that it should be, in that maybe 5 minutes in he should reveal that, no, I'm just making fun of true crime. But no, it's supposed to be funny because you agree with Lance. That's essentially what's being said here. This was supposed to be funny, and the reason you would find it funny is because you agree with Lance. But I also think that if this was not Jimmy Fallon, if it was Jimmy Kimmel, whom I actually think sucks shit in a much more similar way to even what Lance might say, although not to the point of saying evil incarnate and that he would wear his mother's skin. I wouldn't say that of Jimmy Kimmel.
And mistake penance for real material change. But as much as Jimmy worships the gods, he should remember again that their existence only goes as far as we, the people, believe in them. Old gods become mythological figures, and new ones take their place. Maybe there should be more people willing to do the right thing, like John Oliver.
John Oliver, I have pointed out many times, has used state propaganda which demonizes Venezuela. Now, obviously, to somebody like Lance, Venezuela is an evil authoritarian state, but Venezuela is actually a socialist state that is using its oil wealth to attempt socialism. And does that mean it succeeds in every facet? Absolutely not. But as a socialist, as an anti-imperialist, one would think that supporting such a state and supporting that cause, at very least, even if it doesn't quite pan out, which, by the way, they're in better shape than us in a lot of ways, to be clear. I'm not saying that because Venezuela is in the shit or anything. I'm saying that because even if it was, I would support it over the American empire, period. John Oliver, on the other hand, specifically, not just through the crime of omission because of a birthday celebration because they were eating, but specifically used a bunch of, I can't remember where the information came from, but it was ultimately that of NPOs that are specifically part of the color revolution apparatus. He was using information from them to characterize Venezuela as evil, specifically, as bad, as the bad guys, as the authoritarians, as the wrongs. And yes, he was criticizing Exxon in the process, but Venezuela was also a bad guy. Is that better? Is that better than just being a normal person who is basically just making a show and has somebody on and it's their birthday and they have some food and they don't mention Gaza, which is absolutely fucking insane? No, it's not. It's worse. It's actually worse to use information that comes from propagandistic outlets or organizations to attack what, in a world, if what Lance says is leftism is real, you would want solidarity. No, it's worse to use capitalist, imperialist propaganda intentionally. But I'm also not saying that John Oliver is a bad man. I'm saying that that specific thing is worse than the specific thing that Lance has focused on Jimmy Fallon. He's talked about these two, he talked about this one specific instance repeatedly, this interview with DJ Khaled. Why not hone in on that time John Oliver used propaganda to make Venezuela look like an evil, authoritarian, totalitarian, fascist state? Why not do that? Why not focus on that? Then at least you do something about how propaganda works. And even if you didn't want to make John Oliver look like a baddie, which I want to go ahead and say it's entirely possible he didn't intentionally do that. I will say also, if he was actually being as rigorous as they claim the writing staff of the John Oliver Last Week Tonight show is. They should have looked into the opposing side. Just saying. Even granting that, it could have been a mistake. It may not have been something that they did intentionally. And even if it was intentional, I don't really care. I think he probably thinks he's doing right. His show sucks. I can't stand his fucking show.
Incarnate should be full-time hosting The Daily Show. Or more importantly...
Also, Hassan Minhaj is just not what they're saying. Not what Lance is
Maybe
saying.
They shouldn't be gods at all.
We're back to this.
One other thing was that, like, when I was researching this video, I had to watch so many hours of SNL, and then I was watching those old clips with Jimmy Fallon and Horatio Sanz, and I was asking myself, whatever happened to Horatio Sanz?
In August of 2021, a lawsuit was filed against SNL cast member Horatio Sanz for and molesting an underage fan in front of numerous other cast members and celebrities at an SNL after party. The suit claims that when she was 15, Sanz found her because she was running an SNL fan site and started grooming her, private messaging her, and began a years-long abusive relationship which included sexual exchanges. In September of 2001, when she was 17, Sanz allegedly invited her to an SNL after party where she drank beer with Jimmy Fallon. According to the suit, he brought her to another party in 2002, which had drugs, numerous celebrities, and cast members, and it was there that it's alleged that Horatio molested her publicly, with, according to the suit, a stunned onlooker exclaiming, "Are you fucking serious?" But no one did anything to stop it. The suit would go on to state that numerous other cast members saw what was happening but said or did nothing. A spokesman for Sanz would state the claims are categorically false, and that the accuser was simply trying to extort money from him. They would eventually reach a settlement out of court for undisclosed terms, and NBC said the organization denied Jane Doe's allegations against the company and asked the court to dismiss the case. The parties have since resolved the matter and moved on. Sanz's lawyer says he continued.
The parties have since resolved the matter and moved on, which is why I have to talk about it. Why are we talking about Horatio Sanz, might I add? You know, I don't know about any of this or how true it is or how false it is, and I don't care. Like, we're talking about why Jimmy Fallon is the evil incarnate, right? Thus far, we've provided no case for why Jimmy Fallon is evil. We have instead provided a case for Jimmy Fallon being possibly annoying and likely an alcoholic. Possibly not a great boss in a world of not great bosses. I'm stunned at this video.
To deny all the allegations, but an ABC profile on the story in 2023, which included an interview with Jane Doe herself, painted a damning picture.
I had been drinking, he had been plying me with alcohol, but within that context, I consented to kissing him and making out with him at first at that party. The second that I saw that the cast was coming into the party, I became extremely uncomfortable and froze like a deer in headlights and wanted to stop. And Horatio coerced me repeatedly to keep going with him.
Do you think it was clear to him that you didn't want to participate?
1,000%.
In it, she provides photographic evidence of her with various cast members at events, including with Lorne Michaels,
This
Tina
is
Fey,
weird.
and Jimmy Fallon. She also provided screenshots of the alleged text exchange between herself and Horatio Sanz to ABC News. "Dude, you g***ed me," Jane Doe wrote. "Do you feel differently now about being a 32-year-old man hooking up with a 16-year-old girl? 'Cause I do." According to the text records, Sanz replied, "Of course. I've always felt terrible about that. I didn't know what I was doing. I never intended to g*** you." Later in the exchange, Jane Doe wrote, "Like it would at this point be irresponsible of me not to me to you." To which, according to the records, she replied, "You can. It happened. I'm very sorry, and that would suck, but it's your story. I swear on a stack of improv books I'm a different person. I was a depressed and miserable drunk at the Tracy party. I really tried to fix what I'd done."
The use of that Horatio Sanz quote goes here to this, it goes right back to this using of alcoholism as a kind of buff for making he's a bad person work. Because, yes, it's Horatio Sanz saying it, but including it here, being the editorial force that is creating this video, to include this story at all. I mean, if you want to make a video about this and talk about it, fine, but like, this is not relevant.
Horatio Sanz and NBC settled a lawsuit with no admission of wrongdoing. She was a Jimmy Fallon fanatic who supposedly received a thank you email from both Horatio and Jimmy for creating a fan page for Fallon. He apparently knew she was a high school student at the very parties where she claims Jimmy was drinking beer with her. And once it was apparent that she was being groomed by Horatio, did nothing about it. Neither did anyone else who was aware. The whole story had the potential to damage the entire SNL brand, and for very good fucking reason. And eventually just got settled out of court, and it was never spoken of again. If it's all true, it would be...
That's not true, because they literally did an interview with this woman in 2023. Sounds like it has been spoken of again, actually.
One of the biggest scandals and cover-ups in NBC history, but it's one that you, like myself prior to researching...
Also, I hate the voice Lance is using here, the sensitive voice. It's much worse than his regular voice, which is not good.
In this documentary, probably weren't even fully aware of, let alone how grotesque the details were. And if it did happen, Well, the ability to back up her story and take down that monster lies in Jimmy Fallon's hands. It may permanently damage his reputation, his career, not to mention NBC, and the entire SNL franchise. But it would...
I'm sorry, but like this stuff is litigated elsewhere. Like this doesn't make sense. This stuff, I mean, okay, so they litigated it in court for one. That's one thing that happened. That's happened. It was settled. All parties agreed to something. And I don't know enough about this to warrant. Here's the thing. After the 50 minutes we've already talked about, to introduce this, something that has been litigated in court that we, the audience, don't really know anything about, it's weird. It's an attempt to, I think, give a quote-unquote legitimate reason why this video was made. It's to paint Fallon as a monster who refuses to help someone who is a victim of sexual assault, which, by the way, we don't know. And the fact is, I would guess that all parties are bound to not actually talk about it. I don't know really what the Jane Doe did in 2023, but I do know that lawsuits don't work like you're supposed to keep going afterwards. It's supposed to settle. The word is settlement, right? And I don't want to pretend that there can't be anything wrong with what's going on here. It could very well be that it's just straightforwardly really fucked up. I don't know. What are we doing here? This is a completely different subject. One that, again, I will repeat, has been litigated in court. If Horatio Sands is indeed a recovered alcoholic who has done the work and is no longer drinking and clearly understands the wrong that he did, the text messages that he said to that person were literally, "You're entitled to do this. I was wrong." It's not like he's denying in those text messages that were read out in the record. I don't understand the point here. Well, I understand the point, but I think that it's a stupid point.
Evil triumphs when good men do nothing may sound like a cliche, but it's the exact reality that Jimmy Fallon lives with every single day.
Fuck off,
Meanwhile,
Lance.
this year, Horatio Sands appeared at the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary special. So again, that's probably why we shouldn't have gods at all.
This is gross. The fact you made this is gross. You can't see the humanity of any angle, not just the pro-Jimmy angle, but the anti-Jimmy angle. Every point you make it in the worst way. This is what you're trying to make a career off of. This is what you even claimed you're trying to make us laugh with. This is cynical, awful shit. And the fact that you think this is somehow doing good in the world, telling people we have to demand better. I want a world where we don't think about material want. And these types of problems are solved by addressing people's humanity. And that requires a lot of radical forgiveness. I am not pretending that there are not a lot of things that were talked about here which are problems. There are. But at worst, you proved that the problem you have with Jimmy Fallon isn't really any of the real problems he has. The real problems he has are a means for you to justify how much you hate the fact that he laughed during a bunch of sketches and didn't say something about Palestine, offspring of Palestinian refugees celebrating his birthday. This is gross as fuck. You need to reevaluate your life because this is not, you're not helping anyone. You're reveling. It's a fetish. You're peeing on yourself. It's gross. It's sick. And the fact that you are seeding this around is how to help the world. It's sick. And I will say this. I don't want you to be ruined, Lance. I don't want you to no longer have a career. I don't want you to not be allowed a chance. I don't want you to be restricted in your expression. I don't want any of that. I want you to take a step back and try to learn how fucking wrong you are. I don't think that's going to fix the world. I don't think that demanding better of you is going to make things better for your own good. I hope you do something reckoning with how cynical you are, because this is just, it's so gross and sad. The fact that you so many times more or less alluded to the idea that it's wrong to want love. during the course of this video. It's somehow creepy. Crave love, as you put it. Wow. You need to take a break. You need to walk away from this for a little while. I don't want to belabor the point anymore. Wow. I can't stand this shit. I really cannot stand this shit. As I watched that video, I repeatedly articulated points in which you could divert the criticism towards the symptom or the system rather than the symptom. Repeatedly. It frustrated me every single time he started talking about how we should demand better, and which is ultimately a call to consume better, and how that would help things. Every single one of those could have been diverted towards the fact that the system necessitates this, that this is regular and it is part of a system. But that's not how we went. That's not how it went. And this people wonder why I say the left and the right are the same thing. That's what this is. Like, if you can't see the left and right as the same thing, as defenders of class rule, if you can't see the fact that they both work in one way or another to divert people away from a systemic critique, away from an understanding of class interest and systemic contradictions. If you can't see that both of these things serve to do that, after watching a video like this, I mean, I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say. I don't want to just sit here and like stew. I don't want to be angry about stuff because, again, I want to say this. I don't want people to just hate Lance. Ideally, I would like Lance to just reevaluate things, step back, and understand how incredibly cynical this is and how bad this is going to be for whatever you would call his soul in the long run. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that framing, but like, for lack of a better word, in the long run, this is eventually going to be bad for him. I don't know if there's some way to sum this up just because it's such a it's so disappointing to watch. That's what it is. It's disappointing. And not because like I expect better. I want to, though. I want to. Doesn't that hurt? Like that fucking, I hate that. I want to expect better from them. Like, this is such a weird fucking video. There's a few different hit pieces going around against like people who you don't really understand why they're going after. I don't really understand why does it matter? Let's say Jimmy Fallon is just a horrible person. Who cares? Who gives a shit? It feels arbitrary. Like somebody's like, could you please take down Jimmy Fallon for me? Find a reason to hate him and you just nail it as hard as you can for an hour, please. It's weird. And I want to expect better from these people. It's like Movie Bob. I don't want Movie Bob to be the way he is. I don't know if you've noticed that man has done some things for his physical health that I am actually happy for him about. He looks as though he is healthier than he has been in years. That's what I think that's good. I like that. Movie Bob, on the scale of cynical, like, or whatever, like Movie Bob's actually pretty genuine. He's just wrong. And I respect that a lot more. This is just so cynical, and it's so clearly and obviously cynical. Like you're criticizing people wanting love. Like you're like saying that as if the audience is supposed to understand that wanting love is bad. You have to know that's cynical, right? You can't not know that. You can't make that and think like, yeah, everybody, like, how do you know that? How do you, the autism's starting to take over at this point. I have no idea how to see from his perspective, clearly. I'm going to let you guys go because I'm going to eat a quick lunch and then I'm going to go pick up my kids. This was an awful video. And like, I feel like pretty grossed out by it. Like, I think it's pretty clear, but like,